Hey, before I kick off the podcast, I just want to shout out Next Door Clothing. Next Door, a clothing brand based out of Bondi in Sydney. They're making really nice jeans and shirts and hats. So go and check out their full range at nextdoorsydney.com. They're also artists, so you can go and check out a range of art. They put on rad parties, and I love what they're doing. So nextdoorsydney.com for the full range. Hey, it's Shan here. This week I speak with exceptional human, exceptional skateboarder, exceptional artist. It's Mr. Sid Tapia. Yeah, so those of you that know, you know. Sid was such an influential skateboarder in Australia, especially in the Sydney area, for many years. You know, I'm probably thinking of that era from like early 90s to early 2000s and maybe beyond. He still skateboards. These days, family and art take up a lot of his time, but he's just the most charismatic and passionate human I think I've had on the show for a very long time. I hate to break it to a lot of the skate crew, but like Sid and I, we don't really talk much about skating in this episode. You know, Sid takes us on a journey into his personal life. If we're straight, he takes us to his dark places and takes us to his life now and everything in between. Sid is a man of deep faith, so he's unapologetic about that, and he takes us on the journey of how he came to where he is with that. And it's funny, I'm talking to him and I'm listening to his story, and he's telling me about his family and just, the fruits of his faith, he calls it. He has all these beautiful things in his life. So it's very obvious that whatever he's doing is working for him. And he just had this like rad energy. Like it was so mesmerizing and engaging. And I could just, feel that I was sitting across from a human that had this like deep inner peace. He seemed very enriched and happy, whatever that is, whatever happiness is. But I think enriched and fulfilled are probably the best words that describe Sid at the moment. Sid, back in the day, in my opinion, he was like a very influential skateboarder, obviously a very good skateboarder, but like his overall steez really stood out. Like, from the tricks that he chose to do, how he did them, because style matters, and his overall aesthetic just really stood out. And, back then, this was before social media, and, the currency of being a sponsored or professional skateboarder was to have loads of coverage in magazines and video parts, and Sid did. He featured in so many mags, especially Australian ones. He had international sponsors, and it was obvious because he was just so good. And he had this X factor about him, which he still does have. And if you've seen Sid's artwork, it's profound and it has a very strong impact on people, hence why he's very sought after. He does contract work for various companies when he has to or wants to, he chooses. But he has this underlying desire to be of service to the community. That's what drives him. And he could easily rest on his laurels from like his skate days or even his art days. He could rest on the laurels of the work that he's already produced because it's that amazing. He's also a profound muralist. I think like we talk about how the NRL actually contracted him to do murals of NRL players, which was this really weird paradox, because he just was never a footy guy and they want him to do, pictures of NRL players on walls and stuff like that. He's an ambassador for that brand Ruka. He's just opened up a rad art gallery in Brisbane. So if you're in the area, go and check it out. You will be amazed and mesmerised. And Sid is just so approachable and social. If he's there, he's going to give you the time. He'll talk to you. He'll explain his art and break it right down for you. And I just think if you get the opportunity to connect with Sid, you need to do it because you'll walk away feeling much better than you did beforehand. So as always, this episode's dedicated to my children, Clementine and Otis. And yeah, man, he's the kind of influence I want on my children. And he's the kind of influence that needs to be, voiced in the world more. So enjoy my conversation with him. Cheers. Terrible happy talks. Terrible happy talks.
Yeah, good to meet you, man. Whoa.
Submissive dominant lifestyle. 3, 2,
Okay. So is it Are we on now?
We are, yeah.
Okay, good.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, good. It's good to chat.
Yeah, man. I've been observing you from the sidelines for many, many years, skateboarding wise, but then in more recent years, your art.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel that, this journey into art sort of took over, or was it always there?
Yeah, it was always there, but I guess not many people knew about it, especially through the years of skateboarding, because I guess my life's been quite, visual. People could look into it, with mags and TV, all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, through the skating years, it was hardly ever there. If anyone really knew about it, it would be, some of the graphics, some of my pro models that I designed, or and that was just pretty rough too. It was just like, oh, okay, I'm getting a pro model board. Can I do the graphic? And I'll be like, yeah, okay. So I just do a drawing. But I always knew I could draw, but I wouldn't focus that much time on it. So it was kind of there. Funnily enough, when I say not many people knew about it, I got this text message of Wade Burkett like some time ago, and he sent me a message of some drawings that I did that I'd just given him, and I was like, I didn't even remember him. And he was like, yeah, I got some drawings that you did. I was like, wow. I was just like, okay. So I guess he maybe knew some of it, but I know a lot of my other friends just didn't know too much. But and there's definitely a reason why to all of that, because I knew it was something that I had and that I was good at from a very young age. But it really came to a big halt at the age of 13. Yeah, a massive halt. I can go into that. Yeah, sure. We'll kind of get stuck into it. So I started really loving my artwork or art or aesthetics. I'd say I really started. I was very attracted to aesthetics, and that was from the age of like maybe 4. Even 3. My first few memories of skateboarding was when I was 3 years old, and I was just really drawn to it because my older brother, who is 7 years older, was just like a real. He is my older brother, and he was the father figure that I had as well, and the mentor that I had, because parents were divorced at 3. So I'd always looked at him. You know what it's like when you got the little one looks up to the bigger one and copies and wants to do everything. So I was like that. So he would get into skating, and I'd be like, yeah, I want to get into skating. And he really had a massive influence in my early years that way. But when it came to, I guess, finding my own, and it went down to the aesthetic side of things, my mum has really beautiful cursive writing, and it's very traditional from Ecuador, South America. They'd really teach all the kids to really focus a lot on their handwriting. And it's something that really stood out to me at a really young age. So I would often be there wanting to mimic her handwriting. So that led on throughout the early years to be taught by her. So she saw that I had a liking to it, and I'd often ask her, like, oh, how do you do that letter S? Or how do you teach me a signature? Teach me this. And so I was very enthusiastic about it. So she would sit me down and give me some of her old textbooks from Ecuador that she just so happened to have. And I'd be there pretty much wanting to learn how to write like her, which then what that leads to, just in general, it's pretty obvious to imagine that leads to just having good penmanship, and that means good pen control, which would then lead to saying, oh, okay, I really like this comic or this drawing, or I want to draw someone. It led to that sort of understanding of. So yeah, that was something that I just picked up at a really young age and was really good at when it came to drawing things and copying things a lot as well. I'd copy things often, a funny story is it led me to copying or forging, I should say, not copying, forging. Put it this way, in my primary years, I went really well at school.
What were you forging? Like your school reports?
My mum's signature. I wasn't doing well at school at all. So I should say I wasn't doing well, But to the teachers, it looks like, well, I guess the parents signed the report card, so I guess it's all right. Because I'd get these report cards that were just shocking. They were so bad. And, you got to get it, you got to take it home and get it signed by your parents. And then, so because I had good penmanship, I'd be like, oh, yeah, I know my mum's signature. She taught me her handwriting. Sweet. So I just do this. But I got caught in, I got away with it for some time. But in year 5, I got caught. And because I was a pretty disruptive kid, there was always like a reason. It was kind of like throughout primary and high school, there was always the main teachers or the principals were always kind of looking for reasons to get me out, sort of thing. And in year 5, it kind of happened because I got caught with a forged signature. Year 5, yeah, I started school really, really young too. So I was about 2 years below everyone. So I was just trying to figure life out. I forged a signature, but as I was doing it, I still remember doing it. I panicked because I was like, oh my gosh, I made a mistake on my mum's signature. I'm like, what do I do? I'm like, oh, liquid paper. Remember liquid paper? The one with a brush?
The paintbrush.
Yeah, with it. So I'm like, genius. I know what to do. I'll get liquid paper and I'll just smoothen it out and I'll just buff it out a bit so it doesn't. I'm like, yeah, big mistake. Obviously, no one corrects their signature with liquid paper. So, yeah, I got caught and then copped a cane, a whole bunch of stuff. And
cane, isn't that interesting?
Yeah, right.
I was just on the end of the cane era. I got caned. It traumatized me. I remember that moment so clearly.
Yeah, man. It was gnarly.
Are both your parents Ecuadorian?
Yeah, they are.
And they moved to Australia as migrants?
Yeah. I think so. I was born 73, so they came. Well, I think maybe about 3 or 4 years before that. I think. Yeah.
Describe that experience of being the child of migrants.
Yeah, it was.
Was there an added pressure, you think, to be successful in what you did?
Yeah, definitely.
Because they gave up so much and worked so hard to start a new life.
Yeah,
probably for you.
Yeah, kind of for me, like in some ways, but it was a weird, like when I look at it, throughout the years, I've had to step aside and sort of look at their relationship and go, okay, they were two people that were down for each other and they, decided to start a new life. And it's something that has over the years helped me deal with like, understand like forgiveness and things like that, because throughout my years, we come from a very broken home, and there was a lot of full-on stuff that happened in my early years, like when it comes to the type of household we lived in.
In terms of the household environment.
Yeah. Like a lot of it had to do with confusion and brokenness. And see, like when my family coming over, my dad came over with his brothers and they were wanting to start up a whole new life. And they really just didn't have a sense of knowing of their environment, and they had to just make things happen. They didn't know the language as well. So that was really gnarly, to not know the language one bit and just be stuck in the middle of, okay, we're now in Redfern, Waterloo. This is where, all the younger people are, so not the younger, the migrants are, and they have to just get amongst it all. They got to figure out how to survive. So within that area, it was a poor demographic at that time, and basically, being young as well, my mum having to just work and whatnot. It was sorry, Shan. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. For a second, I thought maybe we had blocked out. So sorry.
I'm really engaged, and I'm just completely identifying. But I'll let you.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So interesting.
Yeah. Cool. No, I was listening to Daz's podcast yesterday, and I know that you're Maltese. Your background's Maltese, so you probably a similar story in a way. Yeah.
Well, do you mind if I just jump in for a second?
Yeah. Please.
I think there's like a certain level of migrant trauma that is really underestimated. Your family moved to a completely different culture to a country that was at the height of the White Australia policy. So then they come to this new country for a better life, then treated like complete outcasts, and then to start out they have to live in what was at the time a very low SES area, which generally is associated with crime and unfavourable characters.
Yeah.
So when you mentioned to me at the very start that your parents divorced at 3, I get it, because the exact same thing happened to my father and his family.
Yeah, right.
Because they were so discombobulated in a new culture, it generated so much trauma within the family,
Yeah.
And it's just such a cycle of people then, their confusion and their pain is then put onto their children and their family because they're there and they're the closest proximity to them. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
No, that's it. Yeah, that's the stuff that I look back at and I go, I have to. That's what I mean. I have to step outside of me and being hurt or having my achievements and having my my expectations just diminished or whatever. In being a son to wanting to have a father, that sort of thing. All those things I've had to step aside and go, okay, let me understand their situation a bit more, and realizing that they were 2 people that were just trying to give it a go. And my dad being young and unfortunately, trying to live his life and survive. And then the relationship was under a lot of pressure, a very turbulent relationship between my mum and dad. Unfortunately, there was a lot of just a lot of hostility, to say the least, you could kind of imagine. And then at 3, being divorced. But one thing, the way, and going back to your question, like how it affected me, it was that I really adored my dad. Like I really just was like, man, the guy's the best. He's like my hero. He was, top looking guy. He was very fit, very, really attractive. Aesthetically, he was an attractive guy, and I'd be like, man, that guy's cool, and my uncles were really cool, even though they were Ecuadorian. They had this really, if you look at back of their photos, they're just like they'd wear platforms, put it that way. You look at something like Ziggy Stardust, and my uncles were sort of emulating that. They were just artistically minded that way, they'd be wearing ponchos with flares and all these wild colors and stuff. Playing guitar, my uncle was like into acrobatics and all that sort of stuff, and I'd be like, these guys are just, they're out there, like I'd be like, wow. Yeah. And my dad being in that mix, but unfortunately because of all that, my mum suffered quite a bit because my dad would just he's on this wild adventure as a man, but at the same time, he's, my mum's having to just take care of me and my older brother and just at home feeling absolutely lonely, not having anyone to, just do life with. So yeah, it started affecting me in such a way where once my dad was gone, I would be missing him terribly, man. Every time I was with him, I'd just be like wanting to literally cling on to him and just be so stoked, just latching off every word that he had to say. But he'd hardly ever be around. That's the thing. Like it was years on end. Yeah.
Well, years on it. So can you ask me why? Like, what was the arrangement? Would you see him like a typical every second weekend type of vibe? Or?
No, it was, my mum had to really get away in a big way because there was a lot of just domestic, hostility going on and that sort of thing. So mum had to really separate. And then my dad was just off, starting to just form a new life and whatnot. And my mum had to, hustle hard, work 2 to 3 jobs and just really just go hard at trying everything and anything to raise her kids. And with her mentality being South American and that her culture, she was brought up in a monastery because she was orphaned when she was 16. So she lost her parents at 16 and then she didn't have anywhere to go. The local monastery took her in and her brother. But she had to live separately from him. So she had to live with nuns and then basically try and figure out life that way. So when she meets my dad at a young age, she's just like head over heels because my dad's like the talk of the town sort of thing, and from her little town. And he's sort of come in and just kind of been swept off her feet in a way. And then, and she's off to this big adventure. And Yeah, in many ways, that's how I've sort of had to try and understand it, and the heartbreak there, and that caused a lot of confusion and hurt in my mum. And unfortunately, my brother and I became the we were the what's the word, the soundboard for all that confusion and
Well,
and hurt. Like we ended up copying a lot of the pain because of that.
maybe she became emotionally enmeshed because she was looking for that hole to be filled. I've heard that parents, if I'm honest, sometimes I do that to my kids because I love them so much,
Yeah,
and they feel this hole in you.
yeah, yeah, in many
But
ways.
but in the same token, it's quite a heavy burden for a child.
It is, yeah, because a lot of it for my mom was like she's a very strong-minded woman. She's taught, like, just from observing her life more than anything, she's taught me a lot in regards to resilience and just not ever backing down, like being able to just go through hardships in a really big way. But the thing that's hard is that to this day I find it hard to get along with her because there was a lot of hurt, dude, like a lot of hurt, man. I don't want to get into it too much out of respect for my mom, but we received some gnarly stuff, and it was on a daily basis, and that was something that I had to deal with to the age of 15, till I had to like physically stand up to my mom in many ways. And that was something
Interesting.
that was really hard to deal with, man, from an early age. Like every day, be constantly in fear of the violence and all this sort of stuff, and also the.
Violence towards you, or is this are you referring to when your parents were together?
No, towards us. Not so, it's just discipline. Like in her eyes, discipline. That old school sort of way of disciplining your kids and that sort of thing. But because, like, the hard thing is this, right? Like, I want to be able to say it in such a way where it's respectful to my mom, in an understanding way where people get it and they understand. Because I don't want to breed any type of resentment or any type of offense. I want to be able to put it in such a clear perspective that people can understand both sides of the picture. Because I'm on the receiving end. Because I'm this kid that has to be raised up, but my mum is having to work 3 to 4 jobs or whatever, do everything she can to put her kids into private school because she thinks private school is the way to go. Because she was brought up in a monastery, so she thinks the safest place for my children is in a private school. So she has to then work hard to push her kids into private school, and she ended up taking us to some, putting us into whatever she could that had some sort of like, different systems, so to speak. Anyway, what ended up. So what I'm trying to get at is that I just remember from the ages of 5 to 15, it was just a lot of mental abuse. I don't even like the word abuse. It was just mental hostility of like just words. Like words.
Anguish.
Words have the power. Well, as the Bible says, life and death is in the power of the tongue, and those who indulge in it will eat the fruit thereof. Meaning, like out of the abundance of your heart, your mouth speaks. So if there's a lot of confusion, hurt, and pain, and if she's looking at this kid, me or my brother, who she's just trying to fight for, I personally was reminding her of my dad because I look like him, and my temperament is very much like him. So all the you can speak life into someone or you can speak death, but it was a lot of that. It was a lot of the negative being spoken over my life on a daily basis. So you can kind of imagine I'm 49 now, and I still find it very, very challenging to speak with my mom. Like it's one of the most challenging relationships I have in my whole life. It's really hard to deal with because
Have you said that to her before?
yeah, dude. Like, but at the same
And how does
time,
she?
well, my
Is she in
mom.
a state of denial or acceptance with it?
Denial, like almost to the point where it didn't happen and that sort of thing. And I'm just like, I just got to sort of roll with that, because, I seek God for like forgiveness and all that, but it's sometimes hard to seek forgiveness when the person you are wanting forgiveness from doesn't exactly seek your forgiveness. You know what I mean? Like, is not apologizing. And that's a hard thing. And I know there's other people that will probably be listening to this and kind of relate. So I'm very aware of that. So I'm being very particular with my words because I don't want it to go in this other tangent where I don't want to, words are so powerful that other people listening can take them on board and go, well, yeah, I can relate to that, and therefore I'm going to. So I want to help try and bring a solution to all this, because the fact that I'm still sort of battling with this internally, with like the dynamic between my mum and myself, it's something that I'd want to help others with, to sort of go, hey, like, you can see it through without having to keep breeding that hostility towards the one that caused the pain, because that's what I've found has been an error in my life many times, is that I end up getting gnarly or just being hostile towards my mum because I'm still hurting. That little kid is still hurting so much. Whereas I've got to, I've seen a counselor about it as well, and he gave me some great advice to sort of say, you got to know when to sort of step in and step out. Because sometimes the guilt complex would come. It's like, oh, she's my mom, I guess I just got to hang out here and just feel like crap and hear these words and just go through this conversation. It's like, no, I've got to know when I can come in, speak love, try to be as normal as I can, so to speak, as hard as it is, and then just step away,
Yeah, but
and not feel
Oh, sorry, go.
So I was going to say, and not feel guilty about that. Because even if it's like 5 minutes and that's all I can handle because it's starting to get too much, it's like, just cool. Let that 5 minutes be a pretty good 5 minutes and step back. Don't let guilt come in and try and just, try and be the bigger dude, so to speak. You got to be able to guard your heart. There's a very famous proverb that says, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. Guard your heart with all diligence. With all diligence.
Processing that.
Yeah, because it says, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life.
But does that mean that you still have an open heart?
Oh yeah. Like what that means. What that means.
You're not shutting off your emotions and feelings.
No, totally not. Like my emotions and feelings have definitely been expressed in many, many ways throughout the years, whether it's in quiet times where I'm just, where I could be, trying to resolve it all and it turns to tears and anguish, and or it could be sometimes just through a one-on-one fight, with someone, or because it's all stemmed and rooted and grounded in this hurt from a child, or it could be one-on-one with my mom where I'm just at war about it. Well, you don't remember what you do. You did this, you did that, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. It's like, got to be very aware of that, because as I was saying, life and death is in the power of the tongue, and what we're speaking can be, as much as it could be emotional and as much as it could feel good, I'm getting all this out. It's like, well, at the same time, we've got to be very aware of the power of our words. So in that sense, I mean, like, that's what's so wonderful about, being able to talk to others about it when you're in a bit of a steadier position to sort of talk about it, and then the emotions can come out in a safer environment, rather than a hostile environment where it can create and breed more hostility and more separation. And that's something that I've really had to guard myself about, because at times I'd just be like lashing out, because it's like, I deserve to lash out now because of all this pain that I've had. So, and then it's like, oh my gosh, this is a huge mess we've got to fix up now,
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah. There's an element of there's a saying I really like called, keeping your side of the street clean. And that's, focusing on that and just, making sure that you're aware of your conduct and your own behaviour and not being concerned with the behaviour and conduct of others. There's so much emotion attached with family. And I'll just relate an experience. I mean, I went through a lot of turmoil with my father, and such a recurring theme is this, notion of childhood trauma, and it stays with people their whole life. And there's, I feel like there's two categories of people, like people who acknowledge it and address it and be conscious about growing out of it. And then there's people who just want to ignore it and run from it and then end up suppressing it through, negative means. Substances are a really obvious one, work addiction, other addictions, all that stuff. Totally. Work addiction's a common one.
Yeah.
But with my father, when you said, I just adored my father, I looked up to him. I mean, I had that too, but he left our family when I was young. And we had this tumultuous relationship forever. He was aggressive man, violent man, strong man, and And I got to a point in my adulthood, especially when I had my own kids, I was like, well, you know, I didn't want to go near that anymore, but I did really love him. So I just really pulled back, you know, and I just didn't make any effort for him. And he passed away last year, you know, and it was never resolved. And you sort of said, like before, like, you know, putting your toe back in the water and then knowing when to pull out, you know. And that was all I really needed to do, but I chose not to.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm dealing with that pain now, and it's really painful. So thanks for bringing that up. And
yeah, dude, no, it's I hear you, man, because like those things that we deal with, we all deal with them. That's something I'm learning more and more, and I've known it, but I'm able to articulate it a bit more to sort of know that everyone is so precious. You know, everyone is so fearfully and wonderfully created, and into this world going, whoa, okay, we got to roll with some serious punches and achievements and ups and downs. And my level of pain is equal to this other person's level of pain. But if I was to swap shoes with this person, I might be like, what the hell? This is way gnarlier than my thing, you know. But we cannot, like, everyone's given what they can handle. You know what I'm saying? Everyone is given everyone's given what they can handle. Like, you know, you look at cars, for example, you know, a car dealer won't say, hey, get this little MG and take it 4-wheel driving, you know, like, but hey, get this big old SUV with, you know, get this big old Chevrolet. Yeah, you can take it everywhere. You know, it's built for it, but it's still going to have to handle its own terrain. And we get put into certain terrains that are just extremely gnarly, but we've got either a spirit or a body that can really handle it when we come through. And unfortunately, sometimes people aren't able to handle it and come through, and they end up, you know, wanting to end their lives. And, you know, that's something I went through in a heavy way at the age of like 25 as well. Like,
what do you mean?
Through suicide, you know, like suicidal tendencies and all that sort of stuff through 25. And the crazy thing is, all this, it's like, where does it all stem from? And it ultimately stems from brokenness. And you know,
wow.
to talk about things such as, you know, like the trauma, you mentioned the word trauma, like, and the things we go through, we all go through our fair share. But say, for example, my fair share was pretty much the mental and physical abuse, right? From the ages of the 5 to 15, it was heavy. It was really heavy every day, whether it's being hit, but more than anything, I'm finding it's the words. Like, if you're being told, for example, on a daily basis, you know, mate, you're very special. You're fearfully and wonderfully created. You were created to, like, love others, to treat others as yourself. You're destined for greatness. Just remember that. You're called to be a leader. A leader is someone who serves and goes out and does wonderful things for their community, for their work. If you're being told things like that every day, you're like, whoa, dude, you're going to be empowered. Now, if you're being told the opposite, you know, everything you touch, you destroy. I wish I never had you. You're an accident. You're not even my child. But all of that with swear words and this and that and that and that. Like, dude, you are going to grow up seriously confused, you know? Now, that's something that I know I received to the point where it physically traumatized me. I was losing my hair at like the age of 7. I remember getting big bald spots, and I didn't grow properly. I physically didn't grow and reach puberty till the age of like 18 or 19. I had a tiny little voice. I was really small, and then I just shut up. It's funny, like through the school years, everyone just knew me as this little gnarly little pest, like just hyperactive little class clown little kid. And then I get out of school, and then I start growing. I start skating more and this and that. And then I start meeting people from school and running into them around the city. And I'm bigger than them, taller than them. And they're like, what? They're thinking like little Sid. And so what I'm getting at, even physically, all this stuff was really tormenting me. I remember in year 7, I literally had a headache. This sounds weird, but I literally had a headache throughout all of year 7, whole year.
Like what, migraines?
Yeah, I had to get CAT scans, all this sort of stuff.
What?
Like, so all of this is because of the environment I was in, the physical, the mental abuse, this is not like losing your hair at 7 and 8, like having clumps of hair just falling out and walking around the house just like a terrified little dog, like just crying, to like being by myself crying and just trying to just gain some sanity in this crazy environment I'm in called a home. Like it was like that. So when I started hitting the streets, I hit the streets hard because I grew up in Sydney City, and I'm like, I want to just stay out in the streets. I then grew up in Rockdale, which was back then it was a gnarlier side of Sydney. But then I was like, I just want to get out, and I'd stay out, dude. I started at 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. At 10, I started getting into the breakdancing scene. 11, I started getting into like heavy like graffiti and just bombing trains, stealing a lot. I was stealing heaps and just being out in the streets because I'm like, I need to get away from this home. Not knowing like I've got a plan, I've got to get out in the streets. It's just like I've got nowhere else to go, basically. So the people I'm hanging with are people that are also out in the streets, at that age. And we're like, so what do we do? Yeah, let's meet up on weekends and just go rack some paint, go steal some whatever, and just go waste some trains or whatever. That's okay. That's a weekend done or whatever. And then during the week, do the same thing after school and just go hard or whatever. So it's a product of the environment. But what kind of getting back to like the beginning of the combo, it's like the art side of things was always there. So if you think about it, if you're a kid that's just into art, but you don't have an environment to do it at home, now you're out in the streets, then you're going to look at art on the streets. And I was seeing that. I'm like, dude, look at this art. I'm catching a train to school. I'm like, I had to catch a train to school every day. So that was a bonus for me because it meant I could tag trains every day. And I'd be like, man, look at this wall. Oh, there's a new piece here. There's a new piece there. This is sick. I'll be like, this is art in this new world I'm in. So that caused me to just, go towards that. And then getting back to like what happened at 13, there was a big standstill in everything. I should have lost my life at 13. I was hanging out. I always have to say this very sensitively because it's such a full-on thing, but I was coming out of trains at Redfern Tunnels, comes out, trains slow down and they start changing tracks. And I was hanging out. I was in the tunnels, just what's called doing a hangout where the doors are busted. Like we'd get in the doors, bust them, and then you just go out, start tagging. I was on the train.
The train's moving.
Yeah. So the train's hauling. It was a lot of fun, but it's crazy. Like you're hanging completely out of the train's just busting through the tunnels, the lights are flying through, and you're just tagging. And you got a sense of, funnily enough, I'd have a sense of solace there where it's like it's just me writing my name amongst all the hostility and just tagging. And then you go to the other side, do the same thing. And then I'd meet up with some friends after school every day. They'd meet me at Central because I'd get on at Martin Place. They'd get on at Central, and they'd travel all the way from Cogger to Central to meet me. And then we'd catch a train back just so we could tag the trains together. Anyway, they met me this one time. We're doing our thing, coming out of the tunnels. My friend, I'm completely out of the train, just hanging on by the bar and my foot. And then she pulls me in. And I'm like, oh, what's up? I'm thinking the first thing is like there's cops or something. But the train's coming out of the tunnel, out into the open area. And it starts to slow down. Always does it. To this day, it still does it. And then it's got to change tracks to get onto the main line. And then she says to me, there's rumors of police in this area taking photos. So this is in the early 80s. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. She's just looking out for me. Because if you think about it, early to mid 80s, heaps of trains just start getting tagged out of nowhere. Like, it's like, what the hell is going on with our trains? So cops are doing everything they can to try and, get this under control. So it made sense to me. Okay, there's cops in this area. So I come into the train, and as I go back in, I remembered looking to my left, and the last thing I saw was she grabbed the middle rail and looked out to see if there was any police. All this that I've just described is about 23 seconds. I timed it one time, 23 seconds. She's pulled me in, tells me, she looks out, and as she looks out, the train's changing tracks, so it's moving back and forth. And as she's looking out, oncoming bridge wall clips the back of her head and spits her out of the train. And it was the loudest bang, dude. It was so loud that I looked up to the I looked up and down the carriage because I thought something came from like the carriage. And then I turned around and the other two girls I was with, they're like, "Where's Tracy?" And we're like, I look out of the train, and there she is, because the train's moving slow, right? Because it's changing tracks. So it was still well enough time for me to look out and see that she's just lying on the tracks there, like on the rocks, like just limp. But the train's still going, and it starts to speed up because the next stop was out at Sydenham. So we got off at Sydenham, told them what happened. I had to get home. I took all the girls' bags, school bags, while they stayed back. And thank God to this day, Tracy's alive, but she
survived.
Yeah, dude, she survived, but she suffers from migraines every day, and she had some serious brain issues that she had to deal with. But I look at that and I go, dude, think about it. She unknowingly saved my life. My whole body was hanging out the train.
So
and she got clipped on the side of the head. So in 23 seconds, my life was spared just like that. And I'm like, that happened at 13. So, and the reason it like the art just took a stance is because of the trauma that I went through, even with that, not knowing at 13 what trauma is, but physically I knew, because every time I went to tag, I'd uncontrollably be shaking. Every time I'd go draw or do something in relation to this art scene that I was into, dude, I'd shake, and I'm like, I'm trying to stop. I'd try to stop it.
A near fatal, like you witnessed a near fatal experience.
Totally,
that's what you witnessed.
Yeah, that's what I witnessed, and I was saved from some. It was so quick, dude. Like I was out of the train, pulled in. She goes out, she gets hit. It's kind of like I was just replaced, and it's like, okay, this girl is going to suffer now for the rest of her life with this brain issue, but you, Sid, should have died that day. Completely would have been smashed by this oncoming bridge wall, just gone. Anyway,
would it be safe to say that like originally like art was your first escape from your reality, because your reality as a child was gnarly? There's no doubt about that. I guess what I start thinking is that people who have these gnarly childhoods, the best escape, and it does work in terms of escapism, is gravitating towards substance abuse.
Yeah,
that was never part of your story.
It was in some ways, but more than anything, the things that I was drawn to and attracted to were things that involved agility and what people call skill. So as I was saying, like my first few memories of things that toys, let's call them toys for lack of a better, was skateboarding and bikes, predominantly skateboarding. So skateboarding, I remember being so drawn to it and wanting to do it because my brother did it. And, you know, he had a board. It was just a flat piece of wood. It was like 1976 or so. And the wheels were these like crazy, I don't know what material they were. And the bearings actually just rolled at the bottom because there was no bearing seal in them. And
no case.
Yeah. And just wanting to be on that, or wanting to sort of, I'd see him do, like, he's like, check this out. I just learned this thing called crab walks. And I'm like, oh man, I got to do crab walks. Oh, check this out. I learned tic tacs. I'm like, what? And I'm there trying to learn. So it was so that I got really drawn to that. So so in terms to what you were saying, escapism became something like, doing something and getting good at it, and then wanting to achieve things and just wanting to produce something and be like, look what I've done, you know, because I didn't have a dad to sort of accredit me and say, you know.
Well, here's a memory. I've got a random memory.
Yeah.
I read an interview of yours in, it might have been a Slam magazine years ago. I can't remember, maybe late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And I this stuck with me. I'm remembering it. And in that interview, you said that your dad said to you once that, son, I don't care what you do, but whatever you choose to do, be the best at it.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you remember saying that?
Yeah, I do, because I tell my kids that as well. My kids say to me, whatever
I say it to my kids, because of you, dude.
All right.
How random's that? That's true story.
That's so cool, yeah. Because that's something that's lived with me, as in, like, because you know how I was saying how I'd stick to my dad and be like just wanting to be around him, but he was hardly ever around. Like there'd be 7 years and I wouldn't see him, and then I'd see him and be like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't care if I hadn't seen him. I wouldn't feel hurt. I'd be like, I don't care. This is sick. it's my dad. You know,
How was he feeling? Was he emotional that he hadn't seen you that long? Was he feeling that strain of not seeing you or not?
no, I wouldn't say it. Like for him, every time I'd see him to this day, like when I'd see him back then, it'd be like he'd see me and he'd just be like, "Hey, son." He'd be like the best dude to hang out. He's extremely charismatic and lovable, and he's got so much charisma and class about him that you're just like, "Oh, dude, this guy is he's just awesome." He can get away with it. You know what I mean? He's one of those sort of guys that can just get away. You're like, and if I think about it, I'm like, dude, the guy didn't even remember my birthday, or you know, he misspelled my name on a card one time. I'm like, but you know, and I'd hardly see the dude. But when he's around, I'm like, oh man, this is my dad, dude. You know, I'm so proud. It's kind of like, and my mom would always like tell me about that and to be careful about all types of stuff. Anyway, but so
They just need their dads.
exactly, dude. The fatherhood is so good. Like it's such a wonderful calling, and like I just look at that. He'd say things like that to me very rarely. I think he said it maybe twice, and he said, son, he goes, I don't care if you want to be someone who does the garbage or you want to be a doctor or whatever. He goes, but whatever you choose to do it to the best of your ability. Do it to the best of your ability. You know, like he wouldn't encourage me to be the best in the field, to sort of say rise to the top and be better than everyone. No, he'd just say, dude, whatever your hand. And you know what I love about that? There's a very well-known proverb in the Bible that says, whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might. So that's something that's definitely was instilled in me when I was young. And I'm like, they go, okay, I've wanted to do skating. But dude, at the age of 11, I had the gnarliest motorbike accident and my leg was smashed. And then I had to get it reconstructed at the age of 18. Like I had major knee reconstruction, and I've had major knee issues throughout all my skateboarding, like major. All my friends know about it because they kind of laugh about it because I'd always just be there complaining or just going, oh, my knees, this and that. But as we're sort of getting on with this story, is that you kind of end up realizing, but I live with this philosophy of like, whatever my hand finds to do it with all your might. I don't care if I've got knee problems. I'm just going to go hard and do it the best I can do. Oh, dude, I want to do this double set. I'd love to do a big road. Like my skating years I always had a spirit to want to go big, but I couldn't because of my disability. So it's like, okay, I'll learn what can I get that's a strength. So I started ollieing higher, putting challenges before me. I'll be like, okay. I ended up getting known for having big ollies and pop and stuff, but it wasn't because that's what I was geared towards. I was kind of geared towards just wanting to go big. When I started skating the city a lot with Alex Smith, for example, we'd go out and look for big gaps. We were out looking for big double sets, but I'd be really challenged because I'm like, I've got a really bad knee and I've had it since I was 11 from a big accident. And it was with him out at Miranda that I had that both my knees just busted out. Skating one car park level to another, we were ollieing this thing and coming down. Both my knees just smashed to the point where I thought they were paralyzed because I couldn't feel them. So then that triggered a whole nother spiral of more knee problems. And so I always had it in me to want to go bigger, but throughout the skating years, it was such a, like, how can I put it? Like, such a, like, oh, this sucks. I've got to deal with this problem, but I want to go big, but I can't. So I guess I better try something else then, you know, like.
More of a tech guy.
Yeah.
You played the cards you were dealt.
Exactly. Yeah. And going back to that philosophy of like, whatever your hand finds, like whatever you choose to do it to your best of your ability. So it's kind of like that.
Say that Bible quote again.
Whatever your hand finds to do it with all your might.
Now, that's interesting because, you know, some people never find that thing. You know, they don't find that calling or that, I won't say gift, but, you know, whatever your hand finds to do, you know, and I feel very blessed that I've found things that light me up like that.
But you know what, Shan, like the way I look at it, it's like I look at it these days and I go, okay, what's my hand finding to do today? Fatherhood, husband, you know, I've got my, when I wake up in the morning, for example, I've got all this history, like you've got all this history, like everyone's got all this history. As soon as you wake up, it's like the mind just starts going, and it could be worries and concerns and this and that. It's like, well, now is the time to find what I've got to do and do it with all my might. And is what I'm finding to do right now a friend to my destiny? What is my destiny? What's the vision that I have for my life? Okay, to be a good father, or let's say a great father, a great husband, a great person within the community, a great influence to the sphere of influence that I have. Okay, so what I'm thinking, what I'm doing, is that a friend to my destiny? What I'm listening to, what I'm reading, what I'm choosing to, get busy with, is it a friend to my destiny? And am I doing it with all my might? So, I wake up of a morning and, I read the word. Like, I love reading the word. I'll read the Bible and just look at that, and I'll just stop and think and just call out to God if I've got concerns or issues, and just be like, help me out with this. I love the fact that, God is a father to the fatherless. And that's something that I feel very akin to, a father to the fatherless, because I haven't had that father, that mentor. So I'm there going, God, help me out in all of this. I feel like a little kid still, that's broken and hurt, but now I'm in this world. You've given me so much, but I'm still just trying to figure it all out. I'm looking at other mentors that do life well. I'm looking at other fathers that do well. I study their books. I read their books because I want a faithful relationship. I want to know how to love my wife accordingly. I want to learn how to provide for a family. So I've got to learn from other people because I haven't had the father. But I'm like, help us out in all this.
You're not being complacent in that.
Exactly.
Ever.
I'm not
ever.
I do. I find it hard to be complacent, because I find that when I'm not, if I stand still, I feel like, well, I may be able to just. When I say complacent, like, there's times where I'm able to definitely stand still and just appreciate, because the goal ultimately throughout the day is a state of contentment, right? Like, and what I mean by that is, like, whether I'm abounding or whether I'm abased, whether I'm going really well or whether I'm stressing out, I've got to be able to find that position where I'm content, and to just be content with the circumstance I've got, knowing that I'm not cheating anything or being a bit of a swindler on the side. I'm not going to be content. I've got to understand that my levels of integrity, are they for real? Like, if I put the mirror in front of me, am I being honest throughout life? Am I cheating on taxes? Am I watching a bit of porn on the side? Am I being unfaithful to my wife in that way by just getting up on some other chick? Am I having an affair? Am I out stealing or trying to get a bit more from, trying to cheat the tax man or whatever? Like, am I living a life of integrity? Right? So in that, I know that I'm guarding my heart. Going back to what I was saying before, I'm guarding my heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. So I'm being very honest and aware with myself against this mirror of truth, so to speak. And it's challenging because I've got thoughts, I've got history, I've got gnarly stuff that I've seen in my life, I've got a whole lot of stuff. So I'm like, they're going, all right, with what I've got, my faith, fatherhood, relationship, my kids, my artwork, my skateboarding, am I doing it with the best of my ability? Do you know what I'm saying? Am I really being integrous and a good steward of it? It's a gift. All these things are a gift, dude. All these things are a gift. Am I being a good steward of this gift, or am I neglecting it, basically? And I've got to be honest with that. I've got to honestly just sit there and be honest with it, because if I'm not, then I'm thankful that I can do what I can in order to try and resolve that. In not a way where, and not in such a way where it's just a burden. I have to do it because, like, this is like, I have to do it because it's the right thing to do. No, dude, because it is the right thing to do. And it's a rad thing to be faithful. It's a rad thing to be, to be a positive influence, to be a great parent, and to be a good pillar of the community. That's a great thing. And we've all got the capacity and calling to be able to do that. We really do. But because of certain circumstances that are held in the past, you may say, well, you don't understand my past, dude. I come from this, I come from that. I had this happen all my life. So, F the system, F that, F this, blah, blah, blah. Totally, that's a good excuse, but are you going to live within that resentment? Or are you going to be able to sort of step out and use it as some fuel, or use it as a like looking into the rearview mirror, so to speak? You know what I'm saying? When you're driving down the road, you put your destination into the GPS. That's your vision for your future. And when you're driving down that road, what's the rearview mirror? That's your memories. That's your past. You look into the rearview mirror to know when to change lanes or to do certain things. Like I can look at my past and go, hey, I remember that sort of way of being towards, I remember when my parents were like that to me and how it affected me. Well, I better not do that. Let's change lanes. I'm off to this destination. Do you know what I'm saying about driving down that road of life?
I do. And I think having a passion is a gift in itself.
Yeah.
And are you kind of alluding to the fact that emerged from a conscious contact with a higher power of your own understanding? Sorry, can I just finish there, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
In regards to, like, you obviously were drawn to art and skateboarding innately, and maybe when you were younger you didn't question that. But if we break it down onto more of a micro level, let's say you're at a point where you want to produce a piece of work but you don't know what to do at this stage.
Yeah.
Are you feeling called towards certain pieces, or do you wait for an intuitive sense? I guess the question I'm asking is how is this inspiration being spoken to your heart, if that makes sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think at the core level, it's definitely at a place where I've had to understand my identity, because we act out of our identity. Yeah. Another well-known thing out of the Bible, it says, "As a man thinks, so is he." As a man thinks, so is he. So if I believe I'm a failure, if I believe I'm not worth much, and I've been down this track, I was mentioning before, I've gone down this track many a time, and I go through it even throughout the week. It plagues me at times, and I've got to be able to wrestle with that and be able to overcome that. I'll never amount to nothing. I was told all these things as a kid, dude. So I've got to wrestle with these. Like, this was my identity. This is what I'm saying. My identity was, I'll never amount to nothing. Everything I touch, I destroy. I'm an accident. I wish the people that bore me into this world wish they never had me. If I was loved, if I was wanted, then why aren't they with me, wanting to nurture me and bring me up and raise me in a certain way? Okay, sure, I'm being provided for, but what about the words and the love and the attention and the encouragement? It's not there.
Dude, it was programmed as your default setting as a kid, and I'm just sitting here and I'm sitting here just finding it so interesting that you've spent most of your life unraveling that programming.
Yeah.
And the pessimist in me just sort of goes, like, because there's so many people in similar situations.
Totally. Yeah, I know.
I mean, most people, because it's a very hard day when you realise that your parents are just flawed humans like you, because we do put them on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And they do the best they can with the cards they've been dealt. And, let's face it, being a parent's hard, and a lot of parents stuff it up. And the knock-on effect is this cycle that people fall into, and then it goes on and on. And I've actually heard that, the cycle of trauma lasts 7 generations. But then I feel like there's people like you who are these conscious seekers who can break that cycle. So you don't do it to your children. But it's just so fucking hard.
It is. It's super hard. And the cool thing is, though, I must say, like, we're extremely resilient. Like, as a creation, like, we're extremely resilient. We go. Life, as you know, is very much about overcoming. It's very much about overcoming. But we're born into this world of brokenness where we're reaching out to, like, whether it's drugs or philosophies or relationships or pornography or fame or whatever. We're always, like, reaching out to, like, basically a savior. That's what we're reaching out towards. We want to be saved. We're like, get me out of this. But life is so rad, so good. Life sucks. Help me. We're always reaching out for something to somehow enhance and make our life better, right? So because we've got an enemy, basically. Think about it. It's because we've basically got something that wants to hold us down, whether it's our thoughts, but ultimately it's the brokenness. And what throughout the generations has basically been called sin, brokenness, errors, wrongdoing. And then, so the way that I've looked at and gone and overcome certain things, it hasn't been my doing. It's just basically been, I've tried so many different things, Shan, like when it comes to growing up, especially my 20s, has this, I'd throughout, you know how, especially as just as people, especially as within our circle of boys, right? We're just boys growing up. We're like, oh, we're skating. Where we've got this competitive edge where we get stoked for one another. But that might inspire us to go, oh, I want to go learn that now, you know, or I'm going to want to try one up or do whatever. We've got that sort of edge about us, right? So when I was young, I used to go, oh man, I'd hear amongst the group of circles, and oh, that guy's so good. Oh man, how good is this? How good is that? I'm like, dude, I want to be good. Like I'm there going, how do you get this good thing? Like this thing called good. Everyone's saying this good things. What is good? I used to just be like, because I want to get some props here, you know. And I'd be like, what is this good thing? So even though it was through the years where we were kind of getting really good at skating, we were getting recognized for it, I'd still have this thing of like, this guy's good, this guy's so good. And it'd be like kind of like this, almost like this competitive envy that I'd be there going, oh man, I want some of that, you know. I want to be good. But I had to sort of go.
I feel like you suffered from imposter syndrome.
Yeah, kind of like, because I'm there going, I haven't, my identity, think about it, my identity is so broken that I'm out in this world now with people that I can relate to, but I'm like, it's like that little kid's is still wanting love and guidance, but I'm there going, if I had it as a kid, if I had a parent saying to me, oh, you're great, you're good, you don't need to strive, just keep doing what you're doing, keep excelling what you're doing, look after your body, look after your health, I wouldn't have to be there trying to get it off other people, you know what I mean? So I had to sort of try break all this stuff down psychologically, just going, okay, what's good? So I used to start saying to myself, okay, good, what is good? All right, good. I got to figure out what's the goodest thing. You know? So I'd start going, I got to learn. So I started learning about like philosophies and religion and all that. I started studying Taoism, Islam, Buddhism, New Age.
At what age?
Early 20s, like 23ish. I started really getting into it. You know, like I started reading a lot more because like hanging out with Davo and all the boys a lot. Like I started seeing he was reading a lot, and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's sick. I remember I used to like reading when I was younger, but I haven't done it because I just want to skate with you boys now. So I better start reading too. So I started reading more, but I'm going, but I got this like desire to learn about what's good. But I had to break it down and go, okay, is good just for my own selfish need because I want to be a good skater, or so I better just look at the best skater? No. I was trying to get deeper with it and going, okay, I want to learn what's truly good. Like what is, you know, so I had to start studying. So I didn't have to, but I started studying more of those things, which people call spiritual matters, you know.
Do you think subconsciously you were already seeking some answers to?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. And I think we all are really, because we all, you know how people say, oh, you're very artistic or you're into the art stuff. It's like, no, dude, think about art, right? Art, some people say it's abbreviated for artificial because you create something that's just basically a representation of life. The only thing an artist isn't able to do with their painting of a person or whatever is they can't breathe life into it, right? So an artist is basically looking at something and drawing his representation of it. And when it comes to abstract art is abstract, but what it is touching upon is more so on the emotional side of things, and emotions are part of life as well. So it could be like, oh, that abstract art makes me feel very tormented. Oh, it's very uplifting and fresh. You know, these are matters that you can't exactly touch upon. Like you can't touch upon joy. You know, it's like joy is not a tangible thing. It's something that is a spiritual thing that is able to animate someone in such a way.
Or is the art helping a person make sense of life?
I I don't think it's helping make people sense of life. I think what it's doing, it's causing people to appreciate life, because art surrounds us everywhere. What I mean by that is that every creation points to a creator. Okay, every design points to a designer. An intricate design points to an intricate designer. So if you look at this is, people wouldn't say it's art. It's just a bottle. But it was created, and it points to a creator. Like, the person who knows this bottle the best is the one who made it. They know what type of plastic it is, what it's built for, etc., etc. Right? So everything really is art. Someone is creating something, basically. But the person who created this bottle isn't deemed an artist. He's just someone who, makes bottles. But then I think the difference with, like, say, a painter or someone who's a musician or something, musicians are able to touch upon emotions and draw out a sense of elation or sadness within the music they play, and that's probably because they just really wanted to harness in on that and as within their life, and that's what ends up being expressed and therefore communicated to the viewer.
Yeah. I've got a random question that just came to me.
Yeah.
Like, going along with that train of thinking, would you consider an engineer to be an artist?
Yeah, definitely. I look at doctors, I look at anything, because, like, everything is creation, man. Like, you look around, at the intricate design of everything. Like, look at the intricate design of the hand. Like, that's why.
So epic.
That's why I look at when people question God. Like, I'm like, they go, man, I don't know. I honestly, it kind of bewilders me how people cannot believe that an intricate designer or creator exists. It really bewilders me, because every creation, every design points to a designer. Like, if I was a random accident or a product of Big Bang or whatever, I just think, man, not even in reality is that the case, because I cannot get my palette of paint and have a random accident and suddenly I'll see a landscape, or I'll see, with my palette of paint, if I just tripped over on the canvas, I'm just going to have all these blotches or whatever. Oh, but hold on, if I stay there for a couple of million years, it might start evolving into a fish, which then turn into a monkey, it's not going to happen, man. Every design has a designer, and I'm just there going. So for me personally, I'm there going. It bewilders me, that whole God argument. I'm like, wow, dude, that
because we are perfectly designed, and you just have to witness a childbirth
fully,
or to understand
the fact that keeps happening. The woman opens her legs and a child keeps coming out. It's not a fish that comes out, dude. It's
insane.
It's not a random accident,
But dude, it was a mystical experience. It's cliche, and you can never really understand it till you witnessed it. Oh, sorry about that noise in the background.
Oh, good.
But yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Man,
it's a wonderful thing, Like, I look at creation art around me. I look at it all. It's like everything really in its sense, it points back to a creator, like this cup. But then someone could go ahead and just do some random awesome looking cup, and they're like, oh, it's a work of art. And it's like, but the same principle is behind it. Maybe not the same emotion was behind it, because this is just cup. Okay, mass produce it now. But another one could have been like, okay, this one wants to reflect maybe the beauty of a woman, and then, you know what I mean, or all types of different things. But the basic principle behind it is that it's a creation, and it's pointing to a creator. So, and that's what people look at as artists. They're like, today they call them, oh, you're creative. It's like, well, so is a doctor who's patching up a wound. He's creating some healing right there for that person or whatever. Like, so that's why I believe every person should be honored. Like, to honor all people. Like, for what they're doing and contributing towards. For the better of humanity, or for the wholeness of humanity. Every human being deserves honor in that sense.
Would you say on this journey that you're on in life that you've become more empathetic to others as you've gotten older?
Oh yeah, big time, dude, big time. Because what I was saying before, like through the mid-20s sort of side of things, it was very much all about me wanting to sort of break out of that cycle, so to speak. Like, I was touching upon that word good before, the word good, and how I was on this quest to be like, that was a selfish pursuit, dude. Like, because what I was doing was, it's like, I started thinking, okay, how do I get better? I started reading a lot of self-help stuff as well. I'm like, and ultimately it was like a pursuit for my own self to get bigger and bigger and better, more popular, more famous, more recognized, more praised, this and that. But this is the funny thing, Shan, is that I thought, yeah, dude. And I started thinking to myself, I started saying to myself, okay, who's the most famous person in the world? I want to learn from this person because I want to get famous. I started saying stuff like that. And I'm thinking to myself, this is just like a self-help thing. So I started thinking, is it a movie star? Is it an actor or this and that? I basically broke it down. I was like, oh, it's this Jesus character. So I was like, and I didn't believe in Jesus, God, this sort of stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. So you wanted to find out who the most famous person in the world was.
Yeah.
And then you decided that was Jesus.
Yeah, and it makes perfect sense.
He's famous.
He's the most famous, if you think about it.
So then you started to want to aspire to be Jesus?
No, not at all. I started thinking, because I had to be honest with myself, dude, because I had to say, like, who truly is the most famous in all of history? Like, so I had to be honest and go, well, it is Jesus. Like, everyone can pretty much accredit that. You know, he's someone who, I had to go into the fact that whether this Jesus dude even existed in life. And there's all the evidence is there. I've gone into that quite heavily. It's called apologetics. I've gone into apologetics quite a lot to sort of basically study like the case for this character. Anyway, long story short, ended up kind of realizing, okay, yeah, I guess this guy he's got buildings everywhere. People around the world accredit this guy to being God and this and that, and he existed. So, you know, pretty much is the most famous dude. So I thought to myself, okay, I want to study this dude because I want to be famous in my world. Do you know what I mean? So I wasn't saying I want to be Jesus. I'm saying I just want more sort of attention and praise, so to speak. So I started basically going, I'm like, okay, I know where I can go. I'll go to this Bible and I'd pick up a Bible. And during that time, funnily enough, I started skating for Grace Skateboards, which is Andrew Curry's company.
Marty Baptist? Oh, no, Andrew Curry and Marty Baptist?
Andrew Curry's company. And it was Marty Baptist, Adrian Powell, and myself. And this was around the time that Cuzza had, he'd come out talking to people saying that, you know, he was a Christian, this and that. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. You know, I used to just look at that and go, okay, the only other so-called Christians I knew of in my world was, you know, Salman Agar, Lance Mountain, Richard Mulder would drop the Jesus thing every now and then. I'd be like, oh, okay, interesting. These guys are into it as well. Sweet, I'm skating for a company. The owner's a Christian. The logo's a dove or whatever. I'm like, I'm pumped because I'm just so down for Cuzza and still am. I'm just like, this is sick company. Cuzza offered me a pro model board. I'm like, this is awesome. But during all this time, I started wanting to go on that pursuit of still wanting to just be better, which was taking me back to that whole Jesus thing. Is that I was like, oh, okay, I'm going to learn from this Jesus character because he's super famous. So I started opening up the Bible and reading his words. I'm like, this is easy. All his words are in red. I'm like, this is sick. Okay, I'm learning, reading. And then I started doing all that. I started questioning what's the most powerful thing in the world? Like, what's the most powerful thing in this world? Because I want some of that, you know. I'm like, and I was thinking, is it money? I was like, is money the most powerful thing? Is that the thing to pursue? I was like, nah, probably not money. Maybe it's power.
What is it?
I'd be like, is it power? And then I'd be like, no, but people want power and they also want money to have power to kind of spend on themselves or on the ones that they love. And then I was like, oh, okay, hold on. It's this love thing. Love's the most powerful thing in the world because people will sometimes want power in order to have self-love, or people want money to be able to spend on the ones they love, you know, like, or so I was trying to just figure out in my own basic brain. So I was like, oh, I think it's love. Love's the most powerful thing. And the most famous person in the world is this Jesus guy. Okay, cool. That makes a bit of sense to me. And I thought I hit the jackpot when I started realizing that Jesus' whole life was all about displaying the greatest love. And ultimately saying that God is love, and the greatest love that anyone can have for someone to be there, to lay their life down for another person, which is what the gospel is all about, saying that God embodied himself in Christ and laid down his life for humanity to basically bring forgiveness and bring people back into fellowship and union with God. So I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get that, but whatever. I still want to go on this selfish pursuit for myself. And the funny thing is that I said to myself, I still remember saying to myself in early to mid-20s, going, I'm going to make myself a student of this Jesus dude, because I want to get really, really awesome at me, at being Sid and famous and this and that. But I came across these words that Jesus said, which challenged me right to the core of myself and my selfish pursuits. And he says this, he says, if you want to be my disciple, I'm like, yeah, that's me. He goes, if you want to be my disciple, you got to deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. And I read that and I was like, dude, that's not me, man. I'm here to make myself better here. I'm not here to deny myself. So I put that down. I was like, I'm not for it. I was like, I'm going to go on another pursuit. And I just went at something else. And
was that because you were still wanting to run on your own self-will?
Yeah.
You didn't want to give your will over?
Exactly. Yeah. I was just on that selfish pursuit of like more me, more money, more fame, more me,
Which is addictive, right?
Big time.
Especially when you get recognized for something, and then it sort of validates that and kind of builds the ego and the self-will even more, which is negative.
Yeah, dude.
Do you suffer with that even in this day and age with your art, which is, your art's profound, there's no doubt about it. And you obviously would get a lot of validation from that.
Yes.
And do you associate your own personal self-worth with it still?
That's awesome, Shan. I love that you asked that question, because because no, I don't. But I'll tell you why.
Are you sure?
No,
I would.
No, but
that's amazing.
I'll tell you why, though. I'll tell you why. I can easily say no, because it's getting back to those mid-20s and what was going on. Okay. When I came to that realization of like, okay, I don't want to follow or learn from this Jesus dude anymore, because he's telling me to deny myself and take up my cross and follow him. I'm like, nah, I'm not down for that. I just want to do me, I just want to be more, get more props, basically. And so I put all that aside, but there was still that longing of just my brokenness, and I was still, through those mid-20s, life started spiraling down even harder. I started getting more, the suicidal tendencies and the thoughts started getting heavier. Now, how's this for a story, dude? Like, it came to a point, I was 25, I'd broken up with this girl that I thought I was so in love with, but my living situation was really gnarly, dude. Like, it was black. I was doing some really heavy stuff, whether it was the thoughts I was getting into, the things I was just consuming. I'd have girls that were just, what people would basically deem to be some of the worst sort of girls that you could imagine in a way, but
like girlfriends or like
friends or just girlfriends as well, like that were also just trying to get through life and do things. I was living with people that were doing some really gnarly stuff, to say the least, and then life started spiraling down really heavily, and I was extremely suicidal, dude. Like, to the point where this is a heavy story, and I can't explain it to this day except for just saying it's a good thing, and it was God intervening, basically, because it's, people say there's no such thing as miracles and this and that, but I'll just share something right now that you'd have to just accredit to being a good thing, because I'm alive today. I was in my room, completely just out of it, just wanting to end my life. Now, think about this, Shan. I'm on the outside, it's Sid Tapia, sponsored by some of the coolest brands in skateboarding. He's in all the mags. He's doing really well. People think I'm awesome or whatever at skating. I'm in my room, dark as dark can be, just in the heart and the soul. I even had a Bible open, bro, because I was crying and just crying out for help, because I'd broken up with this girl. But all of the stuff that I've sort of touched on my early years, all that, is just all really coming to the surface. I said to myself, that's it, I'm gonna end my life. I thought I'd been churning for a while how to do it, what to do. And I'm in the room, and then I thought, okay, I'm going to go to the bathroom and do what I got to do. And it was a room just next door. And I still remember I had a phone, and it was one of those Boost mobile phones. I was sponsored by Boost at the time. I still remember the phone. I had all this cool stuff going on in my life, so-called cool stuff. And there I am. I was in tears, just crying out to anything and everything, just going, I need help. I'm about to lose. I'm going. And I made a decision in my head. I said, that's it. I'm getting up to go to the bathroom. Bro, as soon as I went to get up like this, the phone rings. I made this decision going, and I was like, whoa, I got caught. I'm like, the phone's ringing. And it really tripped me out because it's like, if I answer the phone, that means I want my life to continue. So what's the point of answering a phone? Like, if I'm really doing what I got to do, I don't want to answer a phone ever again.
Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Like, so I'm there, I was trapped. I'm there, like, in between death and a phone call, and I'm there going, and the phone kept ringing, and I was in here just going, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? And the phone's ringing. So I just picked up the phone, and all I said was, hello, like in that sort of tone. I'm not there chirpy or whatever. Just said hello. And it's my ex-girlfriend from Chico, California. She's in Chico, California, and she's crying on the other line, like really desperately crying. And the first thing she says to me is, Sid, what's wrong? I'm scared. And I was just like, I just went, what? I didn't say anything because I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed of my life, everything. But at the same time, I'm scared of what she's actually saying. And she's crying, and she's like, I'm really scared, Sid. Tell me what's going on. I know something's wrong with you. I'm scared. Tell me quick. I'm like, nothing, dude. I was chill. Like, I was just trying to shut it off.
So she just felt the energy.
Something, yeah, dude. And she's just prompted to call, and she was scared. I hadn't heard from her in 6 months. 6 months I hadn't heard from her, right? And
after this podcast, something I want to tell you.
Yeah,
I can't say it on here.
For sure. And I didn't go into details with it at all. I just sort of made out like, whatever, what's up with you? And she's like, look, I'm drunk. She'd been out for the night. She goes, I'm drunk. I don't care. I could be hysterical. I don't care. It's not that I want to be with you or something. She was saying all this stuff. She goes, I'm just scared. There's something wrong with you. I'm like, don't worry, whatever. Dude, that tripped me out so hard. Now, I look at that now and go, wow, that was an amazingly good thing that happened. And remember I was talking about the word good? I now look at that word in such a different way. I just look at there's good and there's evil, right?
Okay.
Subtract the letter O from the word good, you get God. Add the letter D to the word evil, you get devil. They're just the source of these things. It's like a black and white thing. There's good, there's white. There's dark, there's black. There's evil, good and evil. There's love and light. There's love and hate, right and wrong, up and down, daytime, nighttime. There's two extremes in this world. There's two contrasts. You even see it in the yin and yang. But everything in between is the gray zone. Everything in between is the gray zone, ultimately leading to the final contrast of whether it's black or white. Dude, I was in that predicament right there and there, dude. I was like, okay, now what happened to me at that incident with that phone call was a good thing. So I look at it and go, that was a God thing. God is love, the Bible says. God is love. And in him there is no darkness, the Bible says. God is love, and in him there is no darkness. It's a good thing. But we're born into a world where we've got a mixture of grays, man. We've got a mixture of grays, and we're called to suss it all out. We're in this brokenness, and there's only one Savior, and we all know who that is. And he's the Savior of your soul. He's not the Savior of your finances, of your your identity or your attitude or whatever. And that's kind of touching back on what I was saying there. I ended up always having to come back to those words that I was plagued with, like when I was reading that Bible of Jesus. I was always having to come back, and to the point where I ended up having to surrender. And going back to your question about how I deal with that now with my artwork, when people give me props and credit and all that sort of stuff, I realize now that everything I've been given is a gift. Everything I've been given is a gift. I didn't come into this world saying, I wasn't in my mother's womb saying, I've got this gnarly plan for my life. I'm going to be a rad artist. I'm going to be a good skateboarder. These are just things I was attracted to. these are things that I just was attracted towards. I was geared and created for such things. Now, these are gifts that I've got. It's up to me to be a good steward of those things. I'm a vessel. And it's like, what am I choosing to sort of gear my life into it? So now I look at it, and when people are saying, "Oh, look at you with your art, this and that," it's lovely getting, people saying, "Oh, dude, your art's epic, your art's that." But I realize that I'm just the vessel for it. Like, I didn't create those colors. I didn't create my hand and my mind and everything to be able to do this work that I do. It's like, it's something that I can definitely do and fathom and control in certain ways, but I look at it and go, all glory to God for that, the creator of it all, because I didn't create myself, dude. All glory to the creator. So I've got my identity is very much fixed in that, and human beings act out of their identity. So I was definitely acting out of my selfish identity back in the day, where I was all about me and look how rad I am. I want to be better, this and that. But I did come to a point of brokenness where I had to surrender and go, wow, it's not me. It's like, I'm just a vessel. I'm a vessel, and it's up to me now to be a light into the world. And the one who showed it and displayed it ultimately was Christ. And he's just this living example of the beauty and the perfect love of God. And he offers that free gift to all of us. And I'm like, well, please, it's a free gift. I believe, and I want to receive that free gift, and I'm sorry for the way I've led my life and wanted to always be away from it all. But I can see the goodness of God now, and I'm like, I surrender. And in that surrender, I've definitely come into a life where I've still got my ups and downs, my struggles, my battles in here and my memory, but my nature has changed. You know what I mean, Shan? My nature has definitely changed.
So therefore, would you say a motivating factor for your art predominantly would be to be of service to the community?
Oh yeah, big time.
Is that what's driving you now?
Yeah,
if you
big
feel
time,
if you feel like a vessel,
yeah.
Well, what's that? And you're creating these things. Well,
yeah, of service to the community. That's beautiful, Shan. Yeah, it really is.
Is that how you describe it?
Very much so. I even had it on my little sticker that I created and my A-frame for my gallery. It says delightful community service. Like my gallery, it says Sydney's gallery. It's got a little dude there that's got a skateboard, a paintbrush, and a spray can, and at the bottom it says the address and it says a delightful community service, because I see it that way, dude. It's like we're of service. We're called to love one another and do unto others as we want to have do to ourselves. Like we've got gifts, and these gifts, you're a teacher, right? And I think, dude, you got a gift of teaching. That's a beautiful service for the community. And think of the word community, like to commune, to come together. We're created to be together and to be in union with one another, to want to see ourselves flourish and grow accordingly, So
do you think our society is becoming increasingly disconnected from each other, though?
Mm-hmm. It's happening, and it's always been happening, and that's because of brokenness and just the sin and the error within our lives, and the error that we've had to deal with throughout the generations, and it gets passed on down the generations, and that ultimately is there to cause division and touching upon that question is that, it's definitely increasing, but the more we step into truth, the more we step into an understanding of our calling and our purposes and our identity, the more as we do that as a human race, then the greater we end up creating what's, throughout the ages has been known heaven on earth. We're all striving for that. That's why even when we're skating, we're like, oh man, that trick felt sick. Why did it feel so sick? Because you landed it, because you constructed it in such a way that it was whole. And dude, I kind of was a bit sketchy on that. I was toe dragging. Well, why is that? Because we've all got a sense and an inclination to want to get to this position where we're content with what we've done. Sometimes people can whip out a toe drag or lay their hand down on the ground after a trick,
and they're happy with it.
And they're happy with it. And you know what? They can kind of make it look sick, and that's rad. Some people may do it because they're trying to mimic the one that makes it look sick, and it doesn't look so sick because they're just trying to basically copy what someone's doing. But do you know what I'm saying? Like we're all geared to want to find this sense of perfection. this sense of like completion. We're all geared towards that.
Do you think it's part of the human condition?
Yeah,
Striving?
definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's within us that way, and because there's we've got to battle through pain as well. There's the enemy of it.
Going back to the heaven on earth thing, I'll just tell you a quick story. One of my previous guests, Jeffrey Olson, he's a New York Times bestseller, wrote an amazing book called Knowing. He had a out-of-body experience, so he had a horrendous car accident, which he was driving. I won't go into the details, but there was great loss in that accident.
Yeah, right.
Great loss. And he died and then had this experience where he rose above the vehicle and he could see what was going on and he's in a ball of light. And the way he tells it's so profound. It's like you just can't not believe him. And then he's there with his wife who just was deceased in that accident.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And has this conversation. And he said that the biggest thing he learned, that he said it was more real than where we are right now, what we're doing right now. He said, this is the alternate universe. This is the trip. Like, and he just really meant it.
Yeah.
And he goes, but, and I had to come back to raise my son. And he said, so, I've come back to this world going, I am actually in heaven now, or hell, but it's our choice, And I was like, wow, I can be either one of those. And that stuck with me. I was like, wow, because this life is it's a trip.
Oh, yeah, big time.
And that story about, your ex-girlfriend just calling you because she felt something, I mean, because you're a believer, you would say that was God speaking through her, yeah?
Yeah, I would say God, I look at God and go, God is love, right? But what is love? The perfect love casts out fear. Love in all its fullness is an unconditional love. Love is to lay your life down for your neighbor. Now, love is, rescuing. Love is, saving someone when they're in danger. Love is a whole lot of different things. Love is emotional. Love is, feels good, etc. This act of what happened there was basically some kid who's about to end his life. I, as a heavenly father, or just a father, dude, you know what it's like for your kid, and I know what it's like for my kid. If I see, I will move the ends of the earth to make sure they will not perish, Yeah. If I see them in danger, I'm going to do anything to just basically rescue them. Here it is that I'm crying out to this so-called heavenly father that I didn't really believe in. Remember, this was happening when I was just trying anything in life. I was studying a whole lot of different religions. I'm broken, dude. I was in a relationship with a stripper at the time, and I was like out partying with my friends, getting wasted, doing all that sort of stuff. I was not like doing this so-called God thing. But here I am going, oh God, I need anything. Help me. If you're there, do something. Basically, I'm crying out. Now, in comes this in comes this thing that happens. Like, I don't care who it is. I'm going Chico, California. I'm going to prompt something in this girl's heart in order to call this guy who's just crying out to me. Boom, something happens. I end up not committing suicide. Dude, all the way from Chico, California, I get a phone call from a guy I haven't talked to in 6 months. That's a good thing. I just see it as a good thing. It's a loving thing that happened to me. This thing that I can't see, that was this act of kindness, this act of love, it's got to be accredited to something, kind of like touching upon every design points to a designer. Every act of love points to a person of love, so every act of love points to a person of love. Yeah.
That's rad. That's a rad quote, man.
And or an entity of love. So love is something, I tell my kids this all the time. It's like, love is something you can't see. You can't buy it down the road. You can't buy a kilo of love, but you see the way it works through people. And this thing that happened to me was definitely an act of love. And I think, and then I read the Bible and I go, wow, it says that plain and simple, it says God is love. And I'm like, oh, wow. So I just go, and God is good. And I just go, that was a good thing. And I subtract the letter O from the word good and it gets God. So I'm like, oh, that's God. That's good.
So you studied other religions. Yeah. So why was it Christianity that spoke to you the most, you think?
Because
was it just the way it was laid out? Like the format of it?
No, not at all. Because I wanted to go beyond what I'm reading. I wanted to go, okay, who are these people? Like, who are these people? Okay. Lao Tzu was a human being just like you and I. And he started writing and philosophizing. He shut himself off from society, and he wrote the Tao, the Tao Te Ching. He wrote that. Siddhartha was a man who was born into a pretty well-to-do home, and he started looking at the Brahmin and seeing how they were denying themselves in order to seek nirvana. He went on that journey as well. You know, Islam, Muhammad, all these guys, they're real people that went ahead and did something. Jesus was this person who was born. Now, there's one point of difference which caused all of it. You said, going back to the question and now answering it. All these human beings all come from a mother and a father. They all have their father's blood running through them, except there's a point of difference now with Christ, which makes Christ extremely different to all of them completely. He doesn't have a biological father. He came and was born of a virgin. People think, well, that's a rad fairy tale. That's all well and good. And it's like, whatever. Now, obviously, this is a miraculous thing. I do believe in miracles. I'm the product of one in many ways. But I look at that and go, well, isn't it in today's society, technology does that, right? Like you can impregnate people without what's called IVF. Is that what it's called? IVF. Yeah. People are there's no sexual intercourse going on, and that's technology is able to do that. I think, well, how much more God in order to intervene and show that it's already been done divinely? It's already been done. That's a story of this lady called Mary, and then conceived is this man called Christ, who doesn't have the blood of the Father. He's got this pure, perfect blood, comes into the earth, and is known even through history. Even in the Quran, he's even seen through history and through all documentation. He's seen as a man who had no sin. Now think about that, dude. No sin? That's gnarly. Like, that's the most gnarliest thing you could ever imagine. I hear this rad quote from a rapper called Shan. He says, if you think meekness is weak, then try being meek for a week. It's like, dude, it is so gnarly to think a life accredited to being blameless and sinless. That's the difference, dude. That's the major difference that I had to sort of humbly look at. I had to humbly look at and go, okay, there's something about this Jesus dude that's obviously completely different. There's no relation whatsoever. All these guys come from biological mother and father. This Jesus guy comes in divinely. But then, dude, this is the thing, Shannon, that I tell people a lot, is that I did have that what's called a born-again experience. I had it, dude, a nature change where I just no longer had beef with God and I just wanted to seek. I had that experience, and I'm still having it to this day, every day. But
wow, I can tell.
As I started going through that, that young age, like that experience that I had in my mid-20s, I didn't know what was actually happening. But now I look at the testimony and the evidence of it all, was me continuously seeking God, seeking my Father, wanting to please Him. That's what a son does to a father. This is something I've never known really in this real world. But I've been going, man, I just want to do right by others. I want to love other people. I want to point people to know their Creator. I want to do that. Like, that's the best thing. I'm experiencing this wonderful, unexplainable thing in my heart that I've got my ups and downs, but I've got someone I can call out to, and I've got this support that transcends this reality. It really does. I'm able to, just know I no longer have this power over me that wants me to just while out in pornography. I no longer have this power in me that just wants me to while out with my friends and just get wasted and just, put my fingers up to all the system or humanity or whatever. I really want the best for humanity. There's something in me that wants this new spirit in me. Like, it just started happening to me, dude. But this is the interesting thing, is that in the midst of that experience, I did not believe that Jesus existed, dude. In the midst of all that, I didn't believe. I had to go hard and realize
Jesus, the prophet, the man.
The man. I was like, what's going on in me? It was kind of like me saying, what's going on in me? I don't even know if this dude was a real dude. Maybe it's just some story. That's some rad story that I'm believing. Maybe I'm just being brainwashed. What the hell's going on? So I had to go hard at what I touched upon before, apologetics. And I had to go in go into a lot of literature and basically investigating to figure out whether he really was who he was and said what he said.
You had to intellectualize it a little bit.
Yeah, because
and it's not like you've made some rash decision.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it's been a journey of research and exploration.
Oh yeah,
it's interesting. I'm just listening to you and watching you, and I see the energy come out of you, and you're mesmerizing and you're engaging. And my friend and I were talking about it the other day when I did this podcast with this guy Jeff Olson, who I found out after the podcast that he's Mormon.
Oh yeah,
but
right.
He had this powerful kindness that you just. I look at him and I felt a real peace when I looked at him, and it was kind of like, they say that word namaste, like the divine in me acknowledges the divine in you, and it's very common with devout Christians. I see it. It's like this X factor they have about them. Now, I don't personally align with the religious denomination, but I do believe in a God of my own understanding. I pray and I have my own methods that I feel work for me right now on my journey.
Yeah.
But it's just really undeniable that this X factor that I see devout Christians have, and I guess that X factor is God, right?
Well, yeah, it's not so much God, I'd say. Like, it is God, but many people have an understanding of God. Sometimes that people believe that they are God. Like, I'm my own God. You hear that sometimes. I'm my own God, or I believe in some other God or this God. But the way Christ rolled it all out, simply put, was when he went, he said he's going to send the helper. Think about that, the helper.
Gotcha.
Who's the helper? The helper as throughout history, that this X factor, it's what's known as his spirit, or what everyone's heard, the Holy Spirit. Now, holy just means it's kind of like saying a cut above the rest, like the best of the best spirit. There's so many different spirits. People can be, there's so many different sort of ways of being, but the Holy Spirit is known as the helper, and that whole born again experience that people talk about, or that comes up throughout history, is basically saying Jesus said you must be born again of spirit and water. And to worship God is to worship him in spirit and truth. Not you got to go to church every Sunday, you got to do this, you got to do that. And if you don't do that, it's kind of like you as a father saying to your son, well, son, if you want to be in my good books, you got to do 10 push-ups a day. You got to make sure your maths homework's done by this time. Blah, 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 blah. And if it's not done, then you got no part with me. See, that's what people think having a relationship with this so-called God is about. But it's not, dude. It's ultimately just saying, wow, God is so good that in my brokenness and in my sin and in my shame and all the things I've done wrong, I've got a creator that's willing to still take me back and forgive me and say, it's all good. The prodigal son is a very famous story. To take him back.
And the result is inner peace.
And the result and the promise is that he'll send the helper, which is the Holy Spirit, to come into your life and give you that born again thing, which is that experience of just having a nature change.
Like?
Well, it's a nature.
What's that like?
It's a nature change.
What's a born again feeling like? Like, did you hit a rock bottom before that happened?
Well, I was going through rock bottom from it was a gradual thing to the point where I just would want to end my life. But even when I wanted to end my life, in that midst and that phone call, even after that, life started getting worse, dude. I was going through major struggles because then the nature change was happening. Because you say, what was it like? Okay, this is what it was like. I've got this nature change where I'm like, I can't deny this thing where I no longer want to have beef with God. I no longer want to deny God. I no longer want to say, I don't believe in God. I used to say that. I used to question. People would talk to me. Yeah, I grew up in the city, so I'd have evangelists handing out gospel tracts. You see preachers, they look like the kooks on the streets, and they're going, this whatever, dude. Like I wouldn't think much of that. I'd be like, these guys are the whack jobs of the city, and I had no time for that. And sometimes I just look at it and go, yeah, some of it's a little jaded or whatever, but hey, aren't we all in many ways? But anyhow, you say, what's it like? What was it like? It was like a gradual thing. And even now, basically what it is, I no longer have qualms or beef with God, where it's like, okay, let's look at God's commandments. Do not lie, do not steal, do not cheat, do not commit adultery, do not covet your neighbors. All the 10 commandments, basically.
Good values.
Yeah.
Good values.
10 commandments, right? It's not like I'm trying to live a life every day where it's like, must not lie, must not steal, must not cheat. It's not like by my own works. I've got to, I now am like, wow, this spirit in me is like, I want to uphold that. Am I drawn towards looking at a chick that's naked? Of course I am. I'm drawn to it, but am I going to delve into it? I'm going to be like, no, there's something wrong there. Like it's going to jeopardize my wonderful God-given relationship here. My children, I'm failing them in some way. I'm running low on funds or whatever. I've got to make more money for the family. Oh, hold on. There's probably a way I can kind of swindle something to happen. Am I geared to sort of go a bit shifty? Back in the day I was, and am I tempted? Yes, I'm tempted, but my nature has changed where if I even delve within that, it just doesn't sit right with me. It's like this. You say what it's like you put a lion, let's get a lion, right? And put him in a room. There's a slab of meat and a garden salad. Let the lion starve for a little while, let him loose, he's going to go straight to the meat. It's in his nature to do that. Right?
Yeah, it is.
It's in his nature to do that. You get a child. You start raising him up. Do we teach our children to lie, to be cheeky and try and get away with things? They just do it innately, dude. I've seen my child defend themselves and bring up lies or hit the other kid and just. I even saw my little daughter say she wanted to inflict pain on her bigger sister and she enjoyed it. Like I'm there going, what the hell is that? But like
it's a survival mechanism.
Totally.
She's trying to work her place in the pecking order.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's in our nature to want to defend ourselves and to lie or to do something wrong or be somehow like getting away. It's in our nature to do that. Just like you look at and if you think about it, lying, for example, a kid that lies, well, I'm not teaching it to lie. Rather, I'm teaching a child to try and be good. The word good again. I'm trying to teach this child to be godlike. That's good.
You've kind of ruined good. You've ruined the word for me now too. But I'll be like, good God, good God.
Yeah, but there's such a huge plethora of stuff to be found within that. It's an eternal thing of goodness to just explore in that, which is lovely. But what I'm getting at is that you end up looking at that lion, and the nature is to just go straight to the meat. The only way I can get that lion to eat that salad is if I was to somehow miraculously get into that lion and change its nature. Now, what would happen if I could do that, and I did that, and I let the lion loose after being hungry in the same room, meat and the garden salad? That lion, I've only changed its nature. I haven't changed its memories, dude. I haven't changed its memories.
I love this analogy.
Dude, the lion is going to go straight to the meat because that's what it's used to doing. It's just born that way, man. It's just what he does.
Yeah.
He's going to start delving in and be like, oh, hold on, there's something up with this. So it doesn't. But
are you saying that then God is the one that can change that thinking towards the nutritious salad? The
nature change. That's being born again. That's why Jesus. You get it? Yeah. So Jesus came to save. To basically destroy sin, the power of sin, not to eradicate sin. It's no longer gone and, hey, there's no more wars in the world. No, the power of sin in mankind, in the person. It's an individual thing. It's not like this hocus pocus, there's no more work. He's not a genie. God, he's a saver of your soul. He's the one that you cry out to, and he's able to basically eradicate sin from your life. And you now have a new nature change where, you'll keep on being attracted to the things that you're attracted to, just like that lion being attracted to the meat. But you're no longer going to want to savor that thing and just delve into it and be like, oh, this is good. That's what I was like personally. I know that's what I was like within my own sins. I know that I just revel in it and be like, and then afterwards you feel like, oh, I kind of wasn't. You feel a bit weird about it, and you just get on with life, but you keep delving in. Whereas now the nature changes happen where I still get tempted, but I realize and I get stronger over the years where it's like, I actually prefer the salad, I actually prefer this good life where I'm like, I want to like uphold righteousness and truth. I want to look towards the gnarliest dude to ever live, which is Christ. I want to look towards my wife and be like, my wife being like the raddest chick ever that gets all my emotion and all my, sexual attraction. And my kids, I want to spend time with them and raise them up to be pillars of the community or whatever, that's a nature change. And dude, you look at my history, I did not have that upbringing. So it's a complete reversal of life in many ways. So
I didn't realize how gnarly your background was. I mean, from the outside looking in, I kind of got the vibe that you were from a good family and you had a good upbringing.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I think a lot of
no one realizes the work that you've done to get to this stage.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have sort of thought that about me because you create airs about yourself in some ways, but because you don't want to expose all the pain and the hurt. Yeah, as men as well as people, we want to always show the good side of things. But nowadays, I don't shy away from it. I don't deny it. I talk about it in the hope to want to reach others, to sort of get them to be able to go, oh wow, there's a story of hope there. There's a story of transformation. There's a story of faith, or there's a story of overcoming, which is why I'm quite transparent about these things when we're in these sort of situations. Like
you're not afraid of ridicule or judgment.
No, I'm not exactly because I've copped it a fair bit in many ways, especially when I was telling people that I'm a Christian. I did an interview for ASM, and I basically was telling people about God and this and that. And I copped heaps, man. I had friends that just befriended me, that didn't want to be, that didn't want to be my friend anymore. They were just calling me out, being a kook or whatever, because now the Jesus do this and that. And I was like, okay, well, I guess they just don't get it. That's fine. I'm still going to be down for them. I still think they're right.
Well, they're not your people.
Yeah, not exactly.
It's that simple.
Not exactly, but I definitely, if they're in danger, I'd do my best to want to get them out, dude. Which is why I'm telling them about God, So, and then I'd have, even in the art world, I've had heaps of ridicule in that as well, because I've been misunderstood in many ways and copped it, and those things hurt. People's opinions matter because we put ourselves out there in one way, form, or another. But I think the difference is how you're letting those opinions affect you. Are you basing your identity on people's opinions and what they think of you, or are you strong in your identity and resilient in order to be able to utilize that and sort of keep propelling forward?
And it's that courage to be disliked these are the traits of successful people. These are the traits of change makers and leaders. So that's what you are. How did you meet your wife?
I met her 15 years ago through a mutual friend. She's from London. She was coming to the country. She and my friend, one of my closest friends said, "Hey, Sid, got a really lovely girl, a good friend of ours. She's come from London. She's house sitting my house while he goes to London." He goes, "She's actually after someone that can take her to church." And I was like, oh, okay, cool. All right, no worries. I met her that way. But then after that, it wasn't for and this is when we were living in Bondi. After about a year, I started really engaging with her a lot more, and we started getting to each other's worlds. We're all mutual friends and stuff. Rad story about my wife. Talk about nature change, right? Changing the lion from the salad to the meat. I didn't. I'll just throw this out there, and you'll know what I mean. I courted my wife for a year, and then I proposed to her. And from the day we courted, I told her I'm not going to kiss her unless we get married. Think about that.
Bullshit.
No.
So wait a second.
A year.
So you didn't kiss her to your wedding day?
No. Now,
so you did the whole and I'm okay. So the no sex before marriage thing.
Nothing. Now, is it because the Bible says so? Sid? No, it doesn't say that, but it does say that. It does say that fornication is sin. But this is the thing: is like.
Were you scared of judgment from your community then?
Oh, dude, that's the thing. I don't live for. For my reputation. I don't live for my Christian community. I don't live for the culture. I don't live for those things. I live, let's go back to that word. I live for God, for good, but for truly going into that journey of what understanding good is. it's an evolving journey of what good is. The Bible actually says eternal life is to know God and the one he sent. Eternal life is to know good and the one he sent, the greatest testimony of good, which is Christ. But anyway, so by knowing anime, I told her just straight up, I said, because I was really wanting to get this thing right. And I understood by this time that marriage has to be a thing that is, you got to be serious about it. You know what I'm saying? Marriage is not coming from my life where I was very much about womanizing, having a woman here, having a woman there. Dude, I was taught as a kid, the way to go about a relationship is, this is how I was taught. Like I'm getting the talk.
I can't wait to hear this.
Okay. So if you want to have a good wife, you got to have a woman here, a woman in this town, a woman in this town, and then you can choose. That's a smart thing to do. That's what I was taught. I had circumstances, dude, where I'd go down to 7-Eleven and open up a porno and be like, hey, Dad, this is my new girlfriend. What do you reckon? Oh, that's pretty good, son. That's the sort of upbringing I had. To impress him. And he was like, dude, she's pretty rad. That's the sort of like understanding of relationships that I was brought up in. And because it was the case, I had a girl that was in mags and this and that, and she's taken it all off. And so to come out of that and then come into this understanding of God and loving and honoring your wife, your wife to be, honoring marriage, honoring fatherhood, all these things. I now had a new spirit, that born again thing, to want to learn and absorb that, because wow, I'm born again. I've got another lease on life. This is so rad. I'm stoked. This is so cool. And I've got a heart to want to take it in, not because it's a duty or a religion or whatever. No, dude. So then, yeah, dude, I told her that day that we told each other we liked each other. I just said, hey, Anime, just so you know, I've committed in my life that I've got to talk to your dad first if I'm allowed to court you. And if he gives me your blessing, then we're going to hang out and get to know each other. And I'm going to get to know you as a person. I'm not going to get to know you.
She was on board.
Yeah. I said to her, I'm not going to get to know you as your sex, because I'm not going to spend the rest of my life having sex with you. I might spend the rest of my life getting to know you and talking and hanging with you and doing life. So as a foundation, I'm sort of sticking to want to just get to know you and if we get drawn towards marriage, the day the pastor says you may now kiss your bride, that's when I want to kiss you for the first time. And we did it. And dude, it was tempting. It was crazy tempting. You know, a hug, dude. A hug felt like I was doing something wrong with her. You know what I'm saying? I'd be hugging and sometimes going, oh my gosh, this is too much, dude.
You basically just did the opposite to what you had been doing, which hadn't been working.
Yeah.
So admirable. I really believe, I was talking about this with a friend the other day, and I always speak from my own experiences indirectly, but I really feel that many people underestimate that connection they make with someone when in an act of sex. And I think it's really driven a lot of misery for people.
Yeah, man.
I mean, yourself included.
Yeah,
you said that when you're in that suicidal place, it was on the back of, rejection in a relationship.
Yeah.
And I think it's so much deeper than people realise.
It is.
I might cop ridicule for this, but it's because you're making a soul connection with each and every one.
Well, you are.
Every time that's severed,
yeah,
you're left in this really empty, painful place that you have to almost detox from.
You are, and
it's like it's a drug.
Yep, you're right, dude. And it's nothing to be. And if someone were to ridicule you, it's simply because they're wanting to stay within their own understanding of it. Now, if you break away from your understanding of it, what you're saying hits the mark in many ways, because what you're doing during the act of sex is why do we get naked? Okay, we're going to have sex. Okay, let me put my finest tux on. No, dude, I'm going to take off my clothes and show you what I've known since I was a child as my finest tux, my naked body.
Wow.
You are so vulnerable, and you're opening yourself up to someone else to explore the most precious thing you've known since you came into this world. It is so precious, dude. It is so precious. And when you come in and it's not under a form of like honor, or it's just out of out of just self-gratification or just emotional lust, or unfortunately in this wicked world we could kind of live in, rape. All this stuff, dude, it's a form of like this vulnerability that just gets smashed. And as people, we get mixed up thinking, well, the emotions, it feels good, this and that, and we keep doing it over and we go through this cycle. And I went through that vicious cycle over and over thinking somehow that void is going to be filled. And we know it doesn't. Everything, especially the vulnerability of sex and the vulnerability of opening up your life to someone, and the physical side of life that you've known since you were born to another person, that needs to be so guarded and protected, which is why marriage was put into place. God is a good God, and he puts that into place so it could be honored, because God is a God of love who doesn't want brokenheartedness. So there's things put into place in this world to guard brokenness, to guard pain and tears. And that's something that I guess I logically understood and I believed, and therefore I made steps to do that with my current wife of now 14 years. And to this day, dude, I cannot believe that I'm still attracted to the same girl. I used to get bored of a girl after a couple of weeks or months and then be like, I'm over, I need to find something else. And it does honestly just blow me away. And it's because I guard my heart. I don't go looking at other chicks, or I don't revel in all that sort of stuff, trying to like feed my lust or temptations. I got to still guard it. You know, it's a work, it's a process as well.
Whew, Sid, far out, man. I basically just threw out all the questions I had for you.
All good, man. All good. I know we could talk for so long. I don't mind. I'm not in a rush, dude. Right?
It's magic.
I'm not in a rush.
I don't set a time limit.
Cool.
I guess maybe take things on a different sort of trajectory.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a lot of people that want to know about your skateboarding.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah.
You know, and my recollection of you was a skateboarder I always admired, not so much for, you know, I know you weren't throwing yourself down huge handrails and gaps and steps, but yeah, I mean, you just had so much steez, like, and style, you know, and I think you really honed in on that, you know, playing those cards that you were dealt, as you say. And can you just sort of give us your, you know, memories and recollection of that time skating, like growing up, skating in the city at places like, you know, Martin Place, Cannonball, etc., you know, day in, day out? How do you reflect on that time in your life?
Those, though, I reflect on it, like off the bat, I reflect on it in epic moments and times, because we had them on a daily, and, you know, they'd be all day and way out to the morning at times. And it was just a matter of just being in this big playground called the city, and just seeing who rocks up to the playground, and skating and playing and getting amongst that whole environment, and enjoying, you know, the agility of your youth, and making rad things happen and documenting it as well. And it's just and being around laughter and friends and ups and downs and bantering and just, you know,
progression.
Yeah, progression,
like
as
the
well.
Excitement of learning new tricks and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And it would get really clicky and all this sort of stuff, and it's like, oh, okay, what? It's sort of like you're just trying to just figure it out and stay amongst it all. And like it's being with my friends, like that was the city scene. Whereas before that, I was very much in the scene of like Rockdale, Hurstville. I heard you mention Kemp Field in Darren's podcast. That used to be my local.
Where?
Kemp Field in Alloa Bowl.
Oh, yeah, Alloa Bowl.
Yeah, that was my local there.
Was that your local?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you grew up in Rockdale, so it wouldn't have been far.
Dude, we used to skate. I used to skate all the way to Alloa just to go skate Kemp Field. So I grew up, you know, seeing all the boys there, like Glenn Robinson and all the guys down at Skateboard World were guys that I really looked up to and was fascinated by. I wouldn't talk to them that much, but I was just like, oh, these guys are the gnarly dudes. A lot of the Nulla boys would come. Olds Park as well, that rubber ramp with a big fat coping, all that. Yeah, that was all that local sort of area. And yeah, I met a lot of guys there that I ended up continuing to skate with throughout the later years as well.
When did you get your first sponsor?
I was.
What company was it?
That was through. It was Neighborhood from LA, Tracker, A1 Meats, and Etnies, and that was through Q-Day Distribution when I went up to Queensland. Mick Ewan had just gotten sponsored by Chapter 7 through Mike McGill, and Mike McGill had seen him at a demo, and Mick just did a switch front 360 ollie on flat, which is back then, we're talking 90, maybe 94, 93, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Switch front 360 ollie on flat, like that wasn't done. And he did one in front of McGill, and McGill spun out and was like, dude, who are you? And basically said, we got to hook this guy up. So he got sponsored and this and that. And he came back because he lived in Rockdale, Brighton, Sands as well. And I remember him talking how he got sponsored and stuff. And I was like, man, that's awesome. He got sponsored. This is so good. But in my head, I'm going, I'm just skating where I'm skating. I got to go buy my boards, Nathan at Surf Dive and Ski out of the bin bucket, the cheap boards. I used to shave them down with a file to a 7.5 and snap them that day.
Did you shave them down?
Yeah, because all the cheap boards were wider, and I wanted to shave them down. But the moment you shave a board down, you're shaving down all the concave. So now you just got this flat piece of wood that just kicks up on both ends.
And they're snappy.
I remember I'd be there for hours shaving them to the shape I wanted, and then I'd take a big trip. I remember taking a big trip out to Curl Park and learning switch tray flips on the mini bank. And I just got there and I was learning switch trays and then snapping it on like the third try. I'm like, I just went from Rockdale to
just travel.
and then having to walk back to go save some money to try and get another. Yeah. And then anyhow, Mick Tommy, who was sponsoring, inspired me to just go, dude, I think I've got to go do it too, man. I'm skating. I knew I was skating really well. I was confident about my ability to skate. So I said, I'm going to go to Pizzy I think I had $100. I'm going to get a bus, go to Pizzy. I'll live off Maggie noodles and I'll get the cheapest hotel I can find. And I'll rock up to Pizzy and I'll skate. And I know that if people see me skate, I'll create some sort of like stir. So then I skated at Pizzy, and then the next day, word got around, and Jamie.
Who'd you run into? Chad Barty?
Yeah, well, they all rocked up because they'd heard about this dude from Sydney that had come up. So I was confident in that, and it happened. And it was like Jamie Barty rocked up, Chad Barty, Al Boglio, Christian West, Dion Kovac. I think Seb Steele was there, maybe Marty as well. So all these boys rocked up, and they were sort of just like, there wanted to check out my skating and stuff. And then Jamie came up to me, and then all the other boys were sort of behind Jamie. And Jamie was like, "Oh, hey, dude, you skate really rad, man. How would you feel? Does anyone hook you up?" I was like, "No." He's like, "Oh, how do you feel about, like coming down to our factory? I run all these brands, blah, blah, and we could look at sorting you out." And
you achieved the objective.
Yeah. And that was like the second.
That's amazing.
It was like the second day, and I was like, "Dude, this is sick." I was like, he hooked me up with like neighborhood boards, which I was so down for because I'm Latino as well, and neighborhood, I just thought it was the sickest brand. And then
because
and then like basically the next day I've gotten there and I've got all my skateboarding stuff sorted out, and I was like, "Dad, it happened." I was so thankful. Yeah.
So I guess it's safe for me to say that you developed some pretty deep connections with some of those people you mentioned. I'm thinking about like Al Boglio, Dion Kovac, and I know you're very close with Davo and Steve Tierney. And tell us about the board brand you guys brought out as a crew, Class, or was it CLS?
CLS, yeah. So I'll quickly just answer the question you said before. It was like, when did I get sponsored? That was around 20. I was around 20 years old. So it would have been 90. What are we talking here? Early 90s? Yeah, I'm 49 now. Birthday's in September, so I'm 50 this year. So yeah, I don't know what that would be. Yeah.
Dude, you look well.
Thanks, dude.
It's amazing.
I'm glad I do because it's happening.
And skating and still skating regularly.
Well, I've taken the biggest break off skating that I've had in a long time. I think the last session I had when I got to Brisbane was I think the last good session I had was about 8 months ago because my knees are extremely bad. So I have to get on a different program now. I'm about to get on a whole new program to build my muscles up to compensate for my crazy knees. But yeah, CLS as a company class was birthed out of Mick Ewan, myself, Phil Mackey, Michael Davidson or Davo, and Steve Tierney, where basically like to this day, we still have our own little chat group and everything. We're just like 5 bodies that just were drawn
connected
together. And we all had something in common. Obviously, we all come from, like the Sydney area, but we just gelled together and we were wanting to progress the same way. We were all attracted to the same type of skating as well. It was the type of skating that we were looking to, like when we looked at things in the States or this type of aesthetic we were looking to, or drawn towards the same sort of thing, which I guess helped us stay together too. So we just kept, we were coming up together. We were getting sponsored around the same time. We were getting the coverage at the same time, getting the opportunities. They were all very familiar things and similar things that were happening. So we just always gelled together. So we ended up leaving our current sponsors. I was sponsored by Time Skateboards at the time.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, and then all the other boys had their own sponsors going on, and we're like, Steve was doing some graphic designing, and he was like, I'm going to start. I've formed this logo for class, and it's CLS, and let's start a board company. And we're like, right. So we just left what we were doing, and because we were just so close, we're like, yeah. Even though they were prototypes that Steve was bringing out, we're like, yeah, let's just do it. This is what we do now.
Right. Time Skateboards made such an impact on the Sydney skate scene. They sort of hit the scene hard too. Tell us about that. Tell us about that era, because I mean they just blew up, and you were part of that.
Yeah, it was. A lot of it was birthed out of the boys from Queensland, where so you got Christian West and Al Boglio who really started bringing it out, and you had guys like Nick Karam and Seb Steele and Clint Bond, and later on, like all these guys were just coming out, just boys broing down. And then Time, there was Greg Stewart, Ben Harris, Ryan Denneray, and that, like, to me, it was kind of weird because all those guys from Queensland that I met on that one first trip to Pizzey Park, they were already the scene of skateboarding, like within all the little zines that were coming out of Queensland. They were already known in the scene. Like, Melbourne had like its Snake Pit days, this and that. So I was from Sydney, and I was just coming into understanding, these guys are already kind of getting established in their scene. So I was just like kind of like this newcomer to understanding all this. So I didn't know about if there was a rivalry between this shop or this mag and this, that, because it's very cliquey back then. I was just like, you guys are sick. You guys are rad. You're from Melbourne. You're from Queensland. You guys are rad. I reckon, I want to be mates with you guys. You're just sick. But through the years, I found out there was little things going on here and there, little thing. And I was like, whatever with all that. And Time was coming up in such a way, it was like, dude, these guys are really sticking out in regards to the production of their videos and the look to their brand. I'm like, this is sick. And then for Christian and Al to approach me to skate for them, I was like, well, yeah, it's like a no-brainer, because they were really kicking goals, and when you get approached by someone that's kicking goals to want to play on your team, you're like, oh, yeah, for sure, And I was like, yeah, let's do it. So that led to having I think I only had 2 pro models on Time, and then that was it was a quick moment. It was kind of like 96, I think around 97, 96, 98, around all that time. And then and to be in the videos and to be alongside Andrew Curry, who's always been one of my favorite skateboarders, and he is pretty much one of the greatest all-around skateboarders alive. And
I agree.
And and to be amongst that, so and because I had history with him with Grace Skateboards, it was just I've always looked up to these boys and just been like, all of them, and just been like, I can see what makes them so rad and awesome, and I'm just there being fans of them all. I've always just been fans of whether it was Clint, Seb, Al, Kaza, whatever. I'm just like, you guys are sick, and I'm in that mix. Thanks, guys. This is awesome.
Yeah. In that era when things were really popping off, I know you were sponsored by Globe shoes as well. Is that right?
Yeah, it was sponsored by
I mean,
Globe.
were you sustaining a livable income from skateboarding at any stage?
I had to.
So you were.
I was, because that's all I was doing.
Wow.
Because
That's so.
but it was hard because I was just skating, and then if I did work, it would be part time. But I made sure that what I was working was somehow affiliated to skateboarding, but it was part of the contract for me to work at Surf Dive and Ski, because Surf Dive and Ski were my sponsor, and I needed more money because skateboarding doesn't, always pay the bills, but especially in the 90s. But that's all I was just committed to. So my sponsor then offered me a contract that says, look, we'll pay you a retainer like each month, but part of the contract is that you work on these, on weekends, or at least, I think it was like at least 2 or 3 days a week or something like that. You work
in the shop
at the skate counter. And I'm like, well, I guess that's getting me money, and I get an allowance of free stuff, and I get paid on the side as a skateboarder.
Yeah,
I'm like,
makes sense.
Sweet. And then I can just sell product when I get product. And I just lived like that throughout all my skating years. So that was,
how long? How many
that
years?
was a professional career.
In Australia?
Yeah. So I'd consider from the time I got sponsored, 21, till I ended up letting go of a lot of my sponsors at 35, because I was sponsored by like a lot of different brands, like Adidas shoes, DC shoes,
Wow.
Circa, iPath, and I made sure that each.
You were sponsored by iPath?
Yeah.
That was that like organic brand. Oh, what
Yeah.
was his name again?
Matt Field.
He was vegan. Matt Field.
Yeah.
Vegan.
Yeah.
They were like the first sort of vegan footwear, I think, from memory.
Yeah, Matt Field is very much into all that, his yoga and all that sort of thing, and that they had this one shoe that I was just a massive fan of, which was simply because it resembled probably more the Nike Dunk with the strap on the top. It was all black and had this. It was like a mid cut. I've always loved mid cuts to high tops, and it had like a strap. I just thought it was a sick shoe, and I thought I really liked Quim Cardona's skating and Ellie Reed. I thought they had some sick sort of styles and stuff, and Matt Field had this loosey goosey sort of style as well. I thought it looked pretty sick. And I could see that they sort of fit within this sort of pocket that was coming out of like the East Coast as well. And it was a brand that was very much down with the East Coast. And I just thought, yeah, it's a good fit. And I was down for it. And I was, searching through life in many ways at that time too. So it was.
You never felt the pull to move to the States and make it?
Oh yeah.
Over there. Did you try that dream out? I can't remember.
I did. I was, but that was the thing. Like I had the opportunity and everything. Globe at that time paid for me to go over, and they put me on their amateur list. So that was like a big deal for me. I was like, wow, there's the pros, like all your big name pros, and I'm in the name of like all the amateurs. And I thought, wow, this is awesome. And
amazing.
Gary V said he'll put me on the program to stay in the country and get
Gary Valentine.
Yeah, and get my visa sorted so I can stay there and live a professional life in the States. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. Phil Mackey was doing it at the time, and he was amateur for real, and he was on the list with Globe like myself, and so was Davo. So I was going in that direction, but the problem and the reason it didn't work was because that was also around my mid-20s, and I just, I told you what was going on in my mid-20s. I was a broken vessel, dude. Confidence levels were shattered. I was just like very insecure and not knowing who I am, just scared of life, going, what am I doing? Broken in here. As much as I can skate and do all this sort of stuff, that's all well and good. But if I'm an absolute mess in here, which I was at that age, I was like, I went through so much stuff in the States. It was gnarly. I had a girl that I was seeing that would come and visit me, and all the way from Australia, she'd come and visit me, and I was trying to break up with her, and I'm going through these suicidal tendencies, and at the same time, I've got a major sponsor that's paid for everything while I'm out there, and I'm just so broken. I was like, my life had to be sorted out, So yeah, I went down that route, and then I was like, you know what? if I get to make it in the States, people think you got to be in the States. But I always had this thing of like, like I don't have to, if I'm going to make it anywhere, I could do it from, I believe, where I am, which is, funnily enough, born and raised in Sydney. I came to Brisbane a year ago, and people are like, why Brisbane, dude? And I'm like, I love a challenge. I love stepping back and going, you know what? There's more space here. I have the opportunity to buy or build a home. I know Sydney so well. I got over the saturation of it all. And I'm like, yeah, let's just try something completely fresh and new.
And your wife was obviously on board.
Yeah, man, she's so rad. She's London, and she's a London city girl. She was born and raised in the city of London. She's got her degree in fashion and now a certificate in real estate, and she's looking at sussing things out and transitioning right now with what she wants to do. She's an artist as well. And I just think, wow, she's so rad and supportive in that sense of just going, you know what, we trust God. We're good stewards of what we try and be good stewards of what we've got.
Yeah.
We'll be all right. Let's just go out and explore this new chapter, and have an adventure that way.
But so her faith was already like well established before you got together?
No. She was she comes from a Christian upbringing. So she's kind of been taught all this stuff all her life, but she broke away and did her own thing in life. She sort of wanted to but she always was drawn back to just knowing where the good side of life is through her parents and the great example that they gave him. So when we met, she was off doing her own thing, like in many ways, but she kind of wanted to, hang around some Christians or whatever, and they'll go to church a little bit. But she wasn't like, I don't really always, she wasn't like a strong Christian, so to speak, you know what I'm saying? So it was kind of like that. Whereas when she's met me, she's like, oh, Sid's like this dude that's very much about, this God thing and wanting to live righteously and stuff. By this time, I was very much, yeah, I'm sold. By this time, I'm there. I'm all for it. So she's met me and gone, wow, he's got it together.
She was down, and she was down for the no kissing before marriage.
Yeah, she was.
I asked that as sort of being a little bit funny, but I also ask it because, like women have needs too.
Fully.
And so. Like it would have been a struggle for her.
Yeah, definitely. Then that's where that's what I said to her. Look, I'm willing to do this not because of. I really don't like it when people get the impression that if you're a Christian, then you can't have sex before. It's not, dude. Like church, all that sort of stuff. It's about broken people. The reason people go to church is because they're broken. They want wholeness. They want, it's just like going to a gym. You don't go to a gym and everyone in the gym is like fit and toned. And dude, you get people that are so overweight and just like, people go to church like, oh, I don't like this church. It's hypocritical. There's like, there's so many hypocrites there.
Yeah.
It's just like going to a gym and going, Are you going to call the overweight person a hypocrite for being at the gym? No, man. They're trying to get their life sorted out, dude. I've
heard that. I've heard people say, oh, churches are just full of like head cases and stuff. It's like, well,
it is.
Yeah, like they're exactly where they need to be.
Exactly, dude. And I know in my I know in my brokenness, I'm not going to be some prideful dude that says, no, I don't need that stuff. I've got it all together. Believe in yourself. The world says, believe in yourself. You can do anything. It's like, dude, if I believed in myself, I'd be dead by now. I need guidance. We all do. We all come from a sense of brokenness. But anyway, in saying that.
So that's the surrender. That's the surrender then that true Christians talk about.
Yeah.
You're in a surrendered state.
Yeah, because you realize true greatness.
And you realize you can't do this alone. You tried, didn't work.
Oh, yeah.
Is that what it comes down
to? Totally.
Sorry to go back on that.
Totally. No. Yeah, that's it. You've come to the realization. You've seen the good news. That's why it's called good news. The bad, put it this way, the Bible says, the wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is death, like a wage, a pay packet, a reward. The wages of sin is death. But there's a but there. Here comes the good news. But the free gift, it's free, dude. But the free gift of God, But the free gift of God is eternal life through Christ Jesus. That's why Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. No one comes to the Father unless they come through me. He's just setting it straight.
I've heard Christians say that a lot, like eternal life, eternal life.
Yeah.
So you're referring to the fact that when your physical vessel dies,
Yeah.
your spirit will live on in another place.
Yeah. And why? Well, where's the evidence for that? It's a whole lot of crap. Dude, there's evidence everywhere, dude. This is the other thing that boggles my mind as well. That the evidence for eternity is everywhere. Okay, what's the symbol for eternity? What's a basic symbol for it?
There's a symbol, I've seen it. It's like the
figure eight, right?
The figure eight, yeah.
Or a circle, right? A circle. No beginning, no end. Have you ever looked at everything in this world and go, wow, everything is, let's look at this, for example. Okay, this is a phone cover. Where's the end of the phone cover? People say, oh, it's just there. But no, it's not. It goes here and then it comes back around to the beginning. Just like this way. It's a full circle just squished out into another shape. Everything, dude. This is not the end of my hand. It just comes back around. Full circle. It's a symbol for every, like even the Bible says, like creation points to the Creator. Like you look at the world and it points to the fact that there is something else out there that people like to say, well, Christians refer to it as God, etc. But what I'm saying is eternity is so evident. If this came from the figment of someone's imagination is something. Now, if I burnt this thing and completely burnt it, it's going to turn into something that you can't see and go out into the atmosphere. It turns into something else. There's evidence for eternity and things continuing everywhere. Like when you just look at it logically, I'm just speaking about logically. The evidence is there. So when you say, do you believe in the fact that when you die, that yes, this spirit in me that's animating this fleshly body is a spirit in me. But when you're dead, it's gone. The life is just gone. But it's obviously gone to something. There's evidence around us everywhere. Like evidence demands a verdict, okay? Like evidence demands a verdict.
Evidence demands a verdict.
Yeah, evidence demands a verdict. There's a great book called Evidence Demands a Verdict, actually, which touches upon the apologetics of Christ and all that sort of stuff. But it's true, evidence demands a verdict. So when you look at the fact that the evidence for life is that I'm animated somehow in this fleshly body, and then when it zaps out, I'm pronounced dead. The Bible does say, like to basically, it's paraphrasing, but to basically depart from this earth is to be present with the Lord. Like now, you either, and then after death comes what everyone sort of creeps in their conscience is like this sense of judgment. I was like, whoa, okay, deeds, something's going to happen. We're about to enter into this new realm. Death is a great awakening if you think about it. It really causes you to wake up to like the reality of life and go, we're all going to face it. Now, what next? People try and deny it.
That's what. I learn a lot at funerals. Unfortunately, I mean, unfortunately, it's a circle of life. But funerals over the years have become. We all have to go to numerous funerals in your life.
Yeah,
and now when I sit in those funerals, I'm actually analysing them much more deeply than I ever did.
Yeah, man.
And because it's just yeah. Sorry.
No, I was going to say it's a wonderful thing. Like it's a sad thing, but it's all faith, really. If you think about it too, it's faith as well. Like faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith is. It's an unseen realm, but you hope. It's faith is the substance of things hoped for, what you're hoping for.
Yeah,
it's the evidence of what you can't see, like skating. Oh no, I believe I'm going to nail this trick right now. Says who? Where's the evidence, dude? Oh no, I just believe it. I got this faith for it, And
yeah. Faith is a crazy thing, It's and I think people are so scared to. Well, I guess there's this illusion of control. We like control, and control is such an illusion. And faith is the solution to that.
Yeah.
And if you relate it to skateboarding, it's like, let's say I was actually I was board sliding a rail the other day at the skate park, and I was just feeling really tight and tired, and I just had to have faith that if I just concentrate on the ollie, that I'm going to get high enough
Yeah.
and land on it, you know. And I really had faith in my ollie that it was going to get me.
Yeah. And you push towards it, and you navigate your body towards that, you know, because you got that, you've set it on the GPS, and you just, you know, you're learning from your mistakes. You know, you're learning from that rearview mirror. Oh, the last time I positioned my foot there, you know, I overflipped it or overturned it or whatever. You know, I've got to get the positioning right, and then I'll be able to nail it properly, you know.
Listen, man, a good friend of mine, he's a fanatical Parramatta Eels fan, loves them, which has been really interesting for me because my father was fanatical Parramatta Eels, and I was always like, I hate footy, I'm not into it, you know, my whole life. And he's like,
Sorry, Shan.
And for him,
Shan.
Yes,
Can we hold that? What do we do about a bathroom break?
Oh, it's the biggest issue with the podcast because, like, I wake up every morning and drink 2 litres of water.
Yeah.
I fast every day.
Oh, yeah, right.
I don't eat till midday, but then I drink water and drink black coffee and water all morning.
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm always busy. I'm actually surprised I lasted 2.5 hours.
That's good.
Because that's how long we've been going, man.
Dude, that's sick.
insane.
Wow, okay. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Your story is beautiful, Sid.
Oh, okay.
You know, it's funny. When I was doing my wee, you know, I try to work off an intuitive sense when selecting guests. But what I've come to learn is, as I get older, that I'm starting to think that intuitive sense that is God speaking to me.
Yeah, right.
And I'm coming to more of a place of acceptance with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel comfortable enough to say that to you.
That's rad. That's so rad. Yeah.
You know, because just the things that you're saying and the messages you're putting out there, I know are going to resonate with people. They're resonating with me, like in ways that, you know, I don't even want to. I'd like to talk to you about more in private.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
But
definitely.
To get us back on track.
Parramatta.
My friend is a fanatical Parramatta supporter, and it's really funny. My father was, and now my father's passed. I'm kind of seeing it like, this is really strange, but I'm kind of seeing Parramatta as like my connection to my father now.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Okay.
Because he loved them his whole life.
Oh,
He loved
right.
them.
Yeah.
I never understood it. Probably just like how he never understood why I love skateboarding.
Yeah.
And now one of my best friends is right into it. And he sent me some photos of some amazing murals you did for the NRL, specifically Parramatta.
Yeah.
Tell us the backstory behind that.
I was approached from a friend of mine who owned a business, and on the side of the wall was a great open space in Redfern, Chippendale, just alongside Everleigh Street. And so, yeah, between Cleveland and Everleigh, and there was this big wall there, and it's obviously still there, which is what kicked off the main murals. But he said, oh, hey, South Sydney Rabbitohs have approached him about utilising that space to paint a mural, and he thought that I'd be the dude for the job. So that was the first NRL mural that basically rattled off all the rest of them, and that was the Greg Inglis one for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. And so that one I painted. That one took about three and a half days, I think. And then after that, I ended up getting, Cronulla. I did Cronulla in Cronulla. There was Lakai. I did Benji Marshall. The Cronulla one was Andrew Eddinghausen and Paul Gallen. And then Lakai was Benji Marshall. Then I did in Melbourne, Richmond. I did Billy Slater and Cameron Smith. So it was interesting because I haven't been into the footy world really. It's just something I was never into. Right. And if anything, footy to me was like, my brother's been into it, my older brother, who was like my father figure. He was the dude who was so into football and sports, like heavy. He was a big St. George supporter, and I was never really that into it. And funnily enough, I ended up having gnarly experiences with the football. What I ended up relating to football, like I had my jaw, I got assaulted and had my jaw broken, busted when I was 14. And basically, I remember the board I had, it was a Gons, had a Vision Gons. I was 15 years old, or 16 or so, had a Vision Gons. The one with the the one with the graphic. Was it a vision? A blind? No, it was a blind Gons when blind just started.
Right.
And so it was a blind Gons with all the characters. Like it was a horizontal graphic, and all the Gons characters lined up. There was about 4 or 5 of them. And anyway, I had one of those. And I remember walking back from picking up my girlfriend, walking back home in the middle of the day. It was like 3 in the arvo, and these 2 dudes just came out saying, you were paying out one of my friends here, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, they whacked me hard from behind. I turned around to fight him with my board. As I've turned around, my jaw just sort of stayed there. My jaw basically stayed where I was from turning around because they'd broken my jaw completely, and my jaw sort of just flew down. And funnily enough, what I'm getting at with football is that these 2 dudes one of them was like I think he was a reserve player for St. George. I ended up seeing him about 2 years later on the reserve bench in a St. George game and pointing him out to my girlfriend at the time, and she went gnarly at him. I was like, hey, forget about it. It was years ago. And she was saying, you're the dude that did this. You're a freaking coward. Blah, blah, blah. I'm like telling the girlfriend, chill, it's okay. It was so weird. Like that was like a reference to, like, whenever I thought of like football, it was like I had this thing of just dudes that were sometimes overly aggressive or whatever. Even at school, all the footy heads at school were always like some like really overly aggressive dudes within their group, but individually it was a whole different ball game. But as a group, they were always just proclaiming strength, and I find that really funny that you can proclaim strength within a big group on one person. Like that's actually weakness. But anyway, I was there going, okay. So that was these references that I had. I remember being in the middle of the street skating. I was skating at this spot and making a hell of a lot of noise, skating these benches at Rockdale's train station. These guys pull me up. They were some tradies working on the road. One of them was one of the big footy players at my school that I remembered him for being this big footy head, and he just stood back while his other mate came out and grabbed me by the throat and was threatening to like just do me in for making too much noise at skating, but really going off at me. And I remember seeing this dude behind him. I'm going, I know you, man. We were at school together, and you're just standing there like not doing a single thing. And I remember. And it's funny how, like, what I'm getting at with the footy murals is that I was totally like, I was like, no, I just skate. But funnily enough, getting into these football murals, I've now come to this appreciation in life, as you know, where I'm just like stoked about people and wanting to know their worlds. So the footy murals opened me up to really understanding people and their culture for what it truly is, and disregarding all the strongholds I had in my mind about all that, and just going, wow, I'm entering into this world, giving honor to an athlete. I did not know who Greg Inglis was. I had no idea. That's how I had the blinders on in skating all my life.
That out of it too.
I was like, Greg Inglis, okay, I Google searched the dude, ended up realizing he's this absolute legend of a player, the amount of honor he has. I'm like, wow, because I like
Indigenous leader.
Yeah, and I was like, I really love researching the people I'm about to paint. And that's the beautiful thing about the job that I do, is that I get to really explore different worlds and put away any prejudices I might have, just be like, no, let's just get in here and just appreciate it for what it truly is, and then bring honor to it when you paint it. So the Parramatta Eels one it was that as well. I got a friend who was a former captain for Parramatta Eels.
Okay.
Tim Manor. And I always wanted to do a portrait of him. And because we're friends, I was like, dude, I want to. And then the Parramatta Eels one came up, and I was just pushing to have Timmy up on the wall as well, which I did. So that was rad. And I had all the other legends of the game, some of them anyway, like Peter Sterling, Ray Price, etc., just having them alongside. And so that was a fun one too, yeah.
Yeah, so you made your peace with the footy. You made your peace.
Yeah, that little broken kid that was just pissed at football.
Yeah, it's special to me too, because my father took me to the first ever Parramatta home game at what was dubbed the New Stadium back in 1984, I think.
Yeah.
And it was, in the heyday of like Peter Sterling, Brett Kenny, Ray Price, Eric Groth.
Yeah.
And I remember as a little kid, and it was such a special moment for my dad, and and me to be part of that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's this lifelong memory I'll have, you know. And so by default, you know, like, again, I'm so out of touch with footy. Personally, never even liked the game.
Yeah.
I just was like, it's a two-dimensional game. It's a one-dimensional game. It's so boring. It's
Yeah.
just like one strategy, like run the ball up, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
pass it wide.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's like I've the cool thing that I ended up loving about all those murals that I did, they became some of my favorite murals because
Really?
because the people that I would meet and the banter and the feedback that I'd got was just awesome. I'm there going, wow, it's really rad to appreciate this whole different culture that I've never been a part of and see how much pride they've got around it. And, you know, people would tell me, oh, dude, that Souths mural you did is awesome, but, you know, I hate the team, but dude, that mural is awesome. You know, like they're so into their other team, whether it's Parramatta or whatever, but they're looking at this football mural and going, dude, so they're in love with the game. It's kind of like us as skaters going, oh, there could be a rad portrait of someone. We may not like that skater, but you know that's about skateboarding. So therefore you're like, it's sick anyway. You know, it just breaks down a few like prejudices that way too.
I love your Cheeto Vera one, the one you did for Ruka. Ooh.
Yeah, that was a fun
Are
one.
you like, so he's Ecuadorian?
Yeah.
So do you feel the connection there, or was that a contracted job for you?
Yeah, kind of. Like I'm with Ruka as a brand, like I'm one of their advocates. So so yeah, when they asked me about doing something with Cheto and they knew that I was Ecuadorian, they're like, oh, this is a cool little thing to do.
Right.
And I was like, yeah, look, I'm not a UFC fan of sorts. I'm just like, but the fact that he's Ecuadorian doing his thing, you know, can understand a lot of his culture, and they want me to paint a mural of him. Like, this would be sick. So got to paint the mural and then reach out to him and just say, dude, look what I'm.
Oh, you spoke to him?
Yeah, like just saying, look, dude, what we're doing. He was like, oh, stoked. And the fact that he knows I'm Ecuadorian and this and that, where there's just that little sort of common little grounding or whatever. And
did he like the final product?
Oh yeah.
Did you get any feedback?
He was amped. Yeah. He was so pumped with it, and he put it up on his Insta, and it just so many people around the world just loved it, and it was really cool. Yeah.
So you actually had me in tears this morning as well. And this is what art does. You had a reel of the Jason Lee.
Oh yeah.
Portrait you drew, and then you mixed it with the song from Blind Video Days, the Knife Song by Milk.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is funny because I didn't even know this, but that band that wrote that song is Jeff Tremaine.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. Yeah.
And you know, I couldn't even find the song on Spotify.
Yeah, no,
like
it's not there.
It was just that they made it, and then you know how you mixed it with some of his part from Video Days, and like that song and that skating combined with your picture. Oh, dude, it just took me back to a place, you know, in my teen childhood, and it's amazing what memories are held in your brain, but you forget them, and then something sparks them, and they trigger you. Like you get triggered.
Yeah.
I was triggered in a really beautiful way.
Awesome. You know? That's so good.
You must hear that regularly from people.
Yeah, I do, because a lot of the paintings that I do or the drawings that I do them because most of them is because I try and see how it touches upon how it's affected my heart and how I can. I feel more akin to want to draw something like Jason Lee. Like I was like, okay, he was my favorite skateboarder. One of, you know, we've got so many favorite skateboarders, but he was definitely one of the major skateboarders. And the whole, his style and his way of doing things, very tall and very solid on his board, but had a lot of like grace and great aesthetic. And the graphics that went alongside with a lot of the Dr. Seuss ones, and the Bible, the gun and the American flag, the Hungry Jack's burger, all those graphics that I just saw coming out of this one guy that was very fun and charismatic as well. I was like, man, he's definitely one of my favorites. And so when I drew that, I was like, wow, I think to myself, who really inspired me in many ways? I'd love to touch on that. So I've dabbled with, say, for example, doing Guy Mariano. I've done stuff of Gons as well. Next one, I'm really going to have to hone in on a fair bit because it's really pivotal in my skateboarding life is Nardis. But I don't know what I want to do there yet. But the Jay Lee one was definitely, I was just trying out this drawing style and the song, everything. I was like, I remember the first time I saw the blind video days was out at Borkham Hills with Carrie Fisher and Glenn Scott at it, and Hank I think was there, and so yeah, with the Jason Lee drawing, it was touching upon like how you'd mentioned how it draws something out of you, like you go back into your memory, and it's just it draws memories out of you, because I like doing drawings or paintings that I like. That's why I like researching what I'm about to paint, and if I can if it really means something to me, then, and I want to paint that, then I guess something is going to come out that's going to touch upon why it matters so much. So with Jason Lee being one of my favorite skateboarders, I've just been such a fan of his aesthetic. He just looks so great on his skateboard. And, he's got a very, he's a good looking guy. And when he skates, his body movement's great. And it's just something that's pleasing to the eye. You look at it and go, there's something really very, you're drawn to him anyways, right? So that's why people would always accredit people like him and say Christian Hosoi to style. And then I'd be like, okay, I'd look at everything about him. There was the Dr. Seuss graphics, Hungry Jack's graphics, or Burger King, all throughout his blind days, the gun, American flag, all that sort of stuff. All those things meant, I guess, the points of references to what I believed was just awesome in skateboarding, and it was coming from this guy that I saw called Jason Lee. And so when I drew him, I was exploring a way of drawing, and I thought I'd draw that. And as I was drawing, I'm like, oh, cool, I'll paint him as Earl from that show. It was called Everyone Loves Earl or something like that. My name is Earl. Yeah, I never watched an episode of it at all, but I just knew him as Jason Lee in my life, and that was it, as Jason Lee the skateboarder. But I thought I'd paint him. I thought I'd draw him as Earl, because that's how some people in the mainstream know him. They know him as Earl, whereas we grew up knowing him as Jason Lee. So I just thought I'd sort of change it up that way, and then putting all the music and stuff together was a lot of fun, because that's been, we get drawn to some of our favorite bands or some of our favorite songs through skate videos, and then that was definitely one of them. And when I first saw Blind Video Days, I was in Borkham Hills with, I got invited from a school friend of mine, John Mick. He said, "Oh, come and skate with my friends over at Borkham Hills," and that happened to be Glenn Scott, Carrie Fisher. There was Freckles. There was, I think Hank Scott was there as well, and Aaron Brown.
Wow.
And oh gosh, I'm drawing a short here, but anyhow, yeah, it was a wonderful experience to just be there amongst these other skaters, and they were just all about skating, and they put on the live video and Blind Video Days, and I was like, what on earth is this? This is phenomenal. I remember seeing Sheffy's part for the first time, and that really hit me hard. And yeah, and then we went out skating that day, but then looking at Blind Video Days and always wanting to see Jason Lee's part and just loving every part of that, I was like, and to draw him would be so cool. And yeah, so as I'd mentioned before we were kind of cut out or whatever, it was like, so I want to touch upon other skateboarders as well. I've dabbled with Guy Mariano, and I've done some of Gon's. I've done some stuff with Gon's, like and I've done, but the one I really want to touch on,
I would buy a Guy Mariano piece if you.
Yeah, sick.
Buy that. And, I have to. I mean, I talk about Guy Mariano on here all the time.
Yeah, I remember you felt akin to him being with your upbringing. I heard that on Darren's podcast. Yeah, and he's been one of my favorites. And then you got Nardis is the one that I really want to do justice towards. If I do something with Nardis, like, because I strongly affiliated with him in many ways, because, with my disabilities in skating, I wasn't able to go big like I wanted to. So I started learning how to ollie really big and all that sort of stuff. And in those early years, it was Nardis who was known to have the big ollie. And in my world in Australia, there was another guy by the name of Tony Lopez, who was my best friend at school, who actually could ollie about as high, if not sometimes higher than an artist, but no one knew him. And
Gotcha.
but people in Redfern and Sydney, there's people that know about Tony Lopez and another guy, Assad. These guys were killing it. That if you put them into America, we'd be going, oh my gosh, these guys are the best. You know, it's just a funny demographic that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it got cut off, but so I'm going to ask it again just in case. So like I said to you this morning, I'm having my morning coffee. I watched that reel you made of Jason Lee with the music and the the skating from Blind Video Days, and then combining it with your portrait and the process that you went through to create that image of Jason Lee. And it triggered me, and I felt really emotional, like I was going to cry. I think I even might have cried a little bit. I don't even know. I mean, is this a commonality amongst your viewers? Do you get this? Do people say this to you a lot? And if they do, how do you respond to people when they say that?
I have had people just say, man, it really touches me in such an awesome way. And and what it's doing for them, I obviously can just tell through their countenance, and that's about it. But obviously there's a whole lot of stuff running through them. And I think that's wonderful. I think, wow, that's really awesome. But I know it's not all my doing. It's just, as I touched upon earlier in the convo, is that art often, what its purpose is to give the viewer a greater appreciation for the gift of life. So, and the beauty of life and the awesomeness of what life is. And that's what's happening there. Like, say you're looking at Jason Lee, it's bringing about something, it's touching upon those, or it's hitting those buttons where you were just like, man, skating's awesome. God, that dude's style. Oh, my friends at that time, I was hitting those spots here. I was doing that. I had this board. I was loving these wheels. You were so enamored with your world, and we love who we are. We love who we are as people because we realize we're so precious, and we're just brave in many ways out in this open world. So there's a tenderness towards who we are. So when you touch upon that with an artwork or with music, it really brings you back to a very, very precious state, and that's a great. It's lovely to be able to do that every now and then. Whether I do it consciously or not, I don't believe I do. It's just an expression of what I'm doing. But when I do paint, I do want to be with a lot of my work. I do want to touch upon something that means a lot to me. I like painting I love painting what I love, I love people. So I'm painting people. I love community and the goodness of life, of God, of mankind.
Well, okay. Yeah. Well, what happens then? What happens then if you get offered a contract job and you're doing it because it's a job?
Yeah, totally.
I mean, how do you combat that as an artist?
Yeah, and that's interesting, but I don't have qualms with it too, because I do get approached that way. And it's like, okay, well, guess what? I'm painting something or I'm doing something that means so much to someone else. Okay, help me out. Service. Help me understand what it is you love about that, so I can somehow feel akin to it, so we can collaborate in a good way, rather than just going, I'm not down for that. I'm not going to do it. No, I go, I'm a skater. I'm this. I just do that. I don't want to put those pride barriers up. I'm like, okay, show me about your world. Tell me about rugby league.
Pride.
I'm like, tell me about your rugby league. Why do you love it? Like, what does it mean to you? Where was your first stadium where was the first home ground that you went on? Oh, what was it like being a kid putting on, your shoulder pads for the first time? Was that sick? And they would probably, it's just like us going, oh, dude, the first time I got my first set of cockroach wheels, all types of funny things like that. It's the same principle running through humanity. And now I just go, all right. So it causes me to, even though it may not be the job I'm choosing to do, it's definitely a job that's come my way. Now, there are times where I will say no to a job because it doesn't sit right with, like, I got approached by a band one time, a well-known band, and they wanted to do some political sort of like slandering towards someone. I didn't agree with this person's politics at all, and I could see where they were going in regards to wanting to do an artwork that's akin to the band and also to slandering a politician. I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to do. And some people are down to do that, but does it sit right with me? I'm like, no, because at the end of the day, that person that if I were to do that work, that person that I could have put up there and slandered them for all public to see, and everyone thinks, that's sick. Yeah, that guy's a kook or whatever. And this band's rad because they're basically kookifying this person. I'm like, okay, this person that I'm slandering is and was a precious baby that was dearly loved and brought up. Now in their adulthood is probably making certain decisions that aren't in line with sometimes the best of humanity. Hey Sid, have you ever made decisions that weren't akin to the best for mankind? Hell yeah, I have. Hell yeah, I have. Have you ever lied or stolen or cheated, Sid? Have you ever been a swindler and just done some gnarly stuff to just get on top? Yeah, I have. You know what I mean? So I'm there going, okay, like I'm not going to, I get what you're doing, sweet eyes, but at the end of the day, I would hope that this person's maybe political views would change for the betterment of mankind. And my way of imparting here right now is probably say no, because I'm all about wanting to honor people. And maybe if it's someone that doesn't exactly fit the tune to the betterment of mankind, I may go there, I may not, but it's ultimately my call and what I can sit with.
And that right there, that approach that you've chosen to take, it can potentially change the world if everyone adopted that.
Yeah.
And that's that, and it's actually that simple, like that deep empathy and then scratching beneath the surface, but not actually, making change. Change starts from within. Okay, if you want to change the world, I don't know who said it, someone wise.
Yeah.
If you want to change the world, you got to start from within. And who are you? And like you said, who are you to judge?
Yeah.
And we get so wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
And it spirals, and then this spiral of like bitterness and resentment,
Fully, dude,
pervades.
Yeah,
and it's poisoning the world.
Exactly, and that's why we see so many different issues in the world. Ultimately, it's because of brokenness and sin, and you hear the famous saying, "Hurt people," etc. But you see that outplayed in society. It's like there's division, and there's like. And even now you've got people in authority that willfully try and create division in order to bring solution and whatnot, in order to gain a sense of power and authority and control. But when we just have an introspective look at our own life within the home and our own introspective life within our daily living, that's where it ultimately starts, because that's your life is an outplay of that. Going back to what we said in the beginning, it's like, guard your heart with all diligence, because out of it flow the issues of life. Guard your heart with all diligence, because and the Bible actually says that the heart is wicked and deceitful above all things. Think about that. The heart is wicked and deceitful above all things. That's gnarly. Where else do wars and fights and all this come from? What's going on in here? The things we conjure up in our mind to want to downplay and break down another person or another society, or to conquer a country and this and that. It's all coming from this plague of nastiness that comes out in here. But with this same heart, we're also saying, God bless you, man. You're awesome. Oh, dude, you got a future. It's the same thing that the tongue, dude. The tongue is such a venomous thing. Which is why we got to condition ourselves towards like taking responsibility and going, okay, I've got a responsibility on this earth to be able to be a catalyst for a wonderful, beautiful, life-giving change. What is it about? Dude, I've broken it down in some ways throughout this conversation. I try to simplify things. Look at the word. Here's another way of simply looking at it, the word information, right? Information. It's everywhere, right? Comes through our senses, eyes, ears, nose, everything. Information. But look at the word information. In and formation. What goes into you is going to form you, right?
Well, the quote, like your thoughts become your words, your words become your behaviors and actions.
Fully.
And your behaviors and actions become your character.
Yeah.
I think I got it wrong. I mean, Gandhi said it.
Yeah. In many ways, that sort of system that works. Like information. It's like, but isn't it true that we have the capacity to be able to say yes or no to certain things we listen to and put into our lives? And because those things we're putting in are going to form us. Dude, if I've got a faithful relationship with my wife, but I decide to start putting information of other women or information of just porn or just, how is that going to affect this faithful relationship that I've got? It's going to start forming it to be broken. Like it's just it's easy to understand that. So we got to be able to take the responsibility and be legit with ourselves and go, nah, this is not a friend to my destiny. This is not a friend to my hopes and aspirations and my dreams. Therefore, I can choose to say no. As tempting as it is, and I've dabbled with it. I know I've dabbled with it and tasted it and it tasted pretty good, but it had a sting to it. And it had a sting, it was like, but I better not do it. It's like a fish, man. The fish comes in with the bait and the hook. It's like, dude, that bait looks pretty sick. Oh, it kind of bites a bit, and then suddenly, dude, drags you away to your death, man. It's like we're responsible and strong enough as human beings to be able to make those core decisions, to be able to shape our life towards those heart's desires that are good,
And you're also sort of saying to be very mindful of the information we consume.
Yeah, we've got the capacity.
What are you consuming?
Me,
by what you're what? No, but I'm saying.
Oh yeah, by what you're consuming. Yes.
Consider what are you consuming? Visually. I mean, I'm always advocating for people being very selective about the media that they consume, because we live in a day and age when you can consume all different types of media. Some toxic, some positive.
Yeah, and you got algorithms that try and fashion you towards the things you're interested in order to get you to keep on thinking certain ways. Like, think about all the main agendas that are in the world right now. Like 2020, what was the main topic? News of the world. I did a painting series called News of the World, right? And I based it off that old Jam song, The Jam. They got that song called News of the World, and I thought I'd title this series News of the World. And it touches on three major topics of the news of the world within after the 2020 thing. The one topic touched upon the virus, the coronavirus. The other painting touched upon racism, and the other painting touched upon transgenderism, because they're like the main topics and the news of the world that's basically being thrown down. It's in the information realm at the moment. So guess what the hot topic is of the world is? There's fights and divisions amongst racism, transgenderism. There was the corona. It's this conditioning that we hear, and this thing. It's like, and then the topic comes out, then the division plays, and then there's wars and discontentions and blah blah blah. blah. It's like, oh my gosh, it's. And you're right, we can be extremely selective with what we put in, but then we can be extremely selective with how we process that information and how we can use it to the betterment of loving and serving one another, or to the detriment of one another.
Yes, brother. Yes. It's really good. Listen, you've moved to Brisbane, made a big change. Like, what's next for the Tapia family?
So right now, right as I speak, we're in the middle of moving home. So there's boxes everywhere. I've just finished. I'm moving studio as well. My studio gallery. I just closed that down last weekend. So I've now looked at finding a space. I've got one sort of commercial space that may be opening up in the middle of the city of Brisbane. And then finding a bigger studio to basically close the doors and paint in. Like, the commercial space will be where I can have my work on display throughout the weeks, and then be there maybe once a week. The studio space is a space where I could just definitely be in and paint bigger paintings. And where, the girls are at school, 11 and 7, doing their thing, loving their school, which is epic. One of the main reasons we moved here is because of the great school that they're at. And then, and now we're my wife, she just finished getting a certificate in real estate. And she's been full-time mumming, so she's been going hard at that job for a long period of time. And so now for me, I'm just out there putting my artwork out, putting myself out like this, like right now on a podcast, which is, something that I find I'm transparent in many ways, so to speak. You know, like I realize as what I do as an artist, I'm not shy. I'm not one of those introverted artists that doesn't want to talk or whatever. I'm okay with it. So therefore, I as a man and as the provider for the family throughout all these years, I just, you know, I put myself out there, my artwork out there, and I'm going to continue doing that. But now I'm in a position where I need to start creating the opportunities the way I'd like to see them. So I'm working on some really interesting projects that could hopefully project more work for me in the next few years. Rather than just waiting to see what comes, I'm actually working on something that could definitely be an ongoing thing for the next few years. So I'm believing I can create that opportunity rather than what opportunity is going to come my way. Let's see, and how much is that going to pay me, so to speak, you know?
It's responsible.
Yeah, I hope so.
Wow, man. Phew, it's been epic. I mean,
Yeah, Shan.
you know, I don't know, there's so much to unpack, and I think a lot of the things you've been saying, for me personally, and I hope if you're listening, you sit back and maybe really process Sid and his life and the stories he's just told us.
Yeah, dude.
But Sid, I ask all guests to come to the podcast with a cause they want to support or advocate for. So what do you got for us today?
So first thing that came to mind cause-wise was Little Legs Foundation, which is a foundation that I've been a part of from day one in many ways. It's very dear to my heart because it's there to raise awareness to find a cure for childhood brain cancer. With Little Legs Foundation, I'm honoured enough to be an ambassador for him as well. And but the story goes deeper in the sense that it was founded by good friends of mine, Marina and Sue Ellen. They lost their child to childhood brain cancer, and this beautiful young girl, her name's Allegra. She also happened to be my first daughter's first friend in kindergarten. Yeah, so when my little girl first went to school, you know how precious that is when your kid goes to school for the first time. You're like, oh, and her first buddy was Allegra, and then unfortunately Allegra was taken out by childhood brain cancer. And the phenomenal thing about Marino and Allegra is obviously through all the mourning and the grief and the continual mourning and grief that they experience to this very day, it's like they've become so selfless, and they're one of the strongest advocates for finding a cure and raising money and awareness for childhood brain cancer. So
amazing.
That is something that's extremely dear to my heart. I've learned so many different things. I didn't know that childhood brain cancer is the number one killer of children in Australia, and if not the world.
Okay.
Yeah, when it comes to children dying, so I was like, wow, that's really heavy. And so that's the cause that I definitely stand behind to this day. Yeah.
Okay, so it's the littlelegsfoundation.org.au.
Yeah.
If you scroll down in this episode, I'll put a link to it in this episode's show notes. And, something I've done since I started the podcast 4 years ago, just to give people an opportunity to be of service to the world, and a variety of different ways. And if this is something that is touching your heart, get on, see how you can be involved. I always advocate for giving your time, and obviously donating is always helpful as well. So good one, Sid.
Thanks, Shan.
Legend.
Thank you, Shan.
Such a good dude.
Thanks, Shan.
All right, man, let's leave it there.
All right, brother.
So, Mr. Sid Tapia, everyone.
Thank you.